All right, we back. This is a Second Rainbow Coalition book reading program. We have a lot of special guests today. We just finished Johanna Fernandez book, the Young Lords of Radical History. A lot of the comrades has been joining this every week on Fridays, on Sundays, on Monday. We want more of y'all comrades that's on today to start coming to these. This is part of the political education. This is a part of us understanding our history, why we are doing what we're doing today, and learning from the past, not to glorify it and look at it as a romanticized thing, but as like case studies that we can extrapolate from the past and make better, even better in our generation. Take the positive, throw away the negative, learn from the past to do better today. So this is why we do these book reading programs. And after we finish these, we like to bring on some of the elders if they're a part of the book that we reading. We brought on Aaron Dixon when we read My People Are Rising, read Hy Thurman's autobiography, which he's always with the Second Rainbow Coalition almost with everything. Anyway, we brought him on to talk about his book and various other individuals. So today we have, I want to introduce our guests, special guests, and some of these comrades is already a part of the Second Rainbow Coalition. So I want to start off by introducing Johanna Fernandez. She's associate professor of Baruch College. She is the author of The Young Lords of Radical History. She's joining us today. We also have David Rivera, original Young Lord. He was the National Field Marshal of the Young Lords. Today, he's an elder, advisor, and board member of the New Era Young Lords today. We also have Cleo Silvers. She's a veteran Black Panther, veteran Young Lord, veteran League of Revolutionary Workers, Black workers, and a current activist today. She's been with the Rainbow Coalition as well. Omar Lopez and David Rivera. And I'm about to introduce the next two guests. Omar Lopez is original Young Lord, and he was the Minister of Information. Today, he is also an elder, an advisor, and a board member of the New Era Young Lords today. Lastly, we have Jorge Che Nieves, original Young Lord, first chairman of the Young Lords Party in the New York prison system. He was original Black Panther in Auburn prison in New York, and also an Attica survivor. So these are the panelists that's going to be on here discussing the history of the Young Lords and also this book that we just recently finished reading. But we're going to start off with the statement of unity for the Second Rainbow Coalition, and Comrade Gabby, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Comrade Kwame. I'll begin reading the Statement of Unity preface. The U.S. was founded as a colonial settler state based upon white supremacy and slavery, stealing the lands of the indigenous nations, breaking every treaty made with them, and confining them to quote-unquote reservations, concentration camps. As the country became more powerful, the eagle sunk its claws into other nations, making war on Mexico and grabbing its northern territory, invading Cuba, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, and the Philippines, and either annexing them outright or making them colonies or neo-colonies. And in the 20th century, it became the major imperialist power in the world, exploiting both the people within its boundaries and those in every other country, bullying them with military interventions, and robbing them of their right to self-determination. As Huey P. Newton stated, quote, "We have two enemies to fight, racism and capitalism. Between the two, capitalism is primary. Racism is a byproduct of capitalism." The working people of the world, of every ethnicity and nationality, face a common enemy that is destroying life on Earth. Our enemy is a small ruling class of property owners controlling most of the world's wealth and resources. We must have our basic needs met to live a good and meaningful life: food, shelter, healthcare, education, freedom from the oppression by the state, and peace with other nations. To obtain these essential things for life, we must have the power to see to it that the abundance that is available is shared equitably. Statement of Unity for the Second Rainbow Coalition. The legacy of the First Rainbow Coalition dates back to its founding on April 4th, 1969, by the original Black Panther Party, original Young Lords, and Young Patriots organization. A number of other organizations joined this coalition not too long afterwards, such as the American Indian Movement, Brown Berets, Rising Up Angry, the Red Guards, and others. Since the founding of the United States, the masses had developed a number of popular movements that came together to fight back against this capitalist imperialist system in various ways around particular demands. Nevertheless, none had established a movement quite like the First Rainbow Coalition. This historic movement was the first of its kind that established a model of class struggle like no other. Its charismatic leader, Chairman Fred Hampton of the Illinois chapter of the original Black Panther Party, stated that at the end of the day, we weren't engaged in a quote-unquote race struggle. He said that's a class struggle, God damn it. By uniting with the various ethnic communities by uniting with the various oppressed ethnicities and masses, they were able to bridge the gap between the various ethnic communities that white supremacy had long sought to keep divided. This class solidarity equipped them with the material basis and class consciousness to see their common class condition. Therefore, the necessity to form a united front against their common class oppressor, the capitalist imperialist ruling class. The ruling class viewed this as the greatest threat to their class rule, and subsequently used the entire repressive forces of the state, police, courts, jails, prisons, intelligence agencies, etc., in order to crush this emerging revolutionary socialist movement. We refounded the Rainbow Coalition on May 14th, 2021, with the intent of upholding the legacy of the original Rainbow Coalition. We believe that this historic example is the model for the United Front that will best serve our class liberation. By upholding the 10-point program of the original Black Panther Party, which was subsequently adopted and later expanded by the original Young Lords, Young Patriots organization, and all other original Rainbow Coalition members, we establish our pragmatic unity. The 6 disciplinary rules that we uphold ties all organizations in our coalition to a common professional discipline. History has bestowed upon our generation a common class mission to fulfill. The representatives of the capitalist imperialist ruling class, represented by the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, cannot liberate us. It is their class intention and class interest to uphold our common class oppression. Therefore, it is only we, the oppressed masses of all ethnicities and nationalities, who must build the necessary class solidarity, class consciousness, organizational structures, and a united front that will ultimately liberate ourselves. This is what the Second Rainbow Coalition is committed to. This is the historic mission we intend to fulfill. Dare to struggle, dare to win. All members of the coalition, New African Black Panther Party, White Panther Party, Green Party of New Jersey, Poor People's Army, La Mesa Nacional de Brown Berets, NASL, North Alabama School for Organizers, New Era Young Lords, and American Indian Movement Northeast Woodland Chapter. The 6 disciplinary rules. Number 1, members will conduct themselves in a manner to bring credit to the coalition and will treat others with respect and politeness. Number 2, members will be sober when on Rainbow Coalition business, and will not engage in any criminal activity while a member. Number 3, no member will engage in violence except in the extremity of self-defense. Number 4, members will not gossip nor be divisive to the unity of the Second Rainbow Coalition. Number 5, members will not act as informers to work against the purpose of the Second Rainbow Coalition. And number 6, nobody is authorized to speak for the Second Rainbow Coalition unless authorized to do so. And that is a statement of unity.
Thank you, Greg.
All power to the people.
So we're going to jump right into the program. I've already introduced the various panelists on here today. I know Jorge Che Nieves that he wrote. I thought that would be a good introduction to kick this whole program off. So if you like, comrade, and we'll jump right in.
Thank you.
And before you start, I would say he was on this book reading day one and read this whole book with us throughout the whole time on here. So yeah, he was very instrumental in a lot of his analysis as we was going through, even especially talking about the Attica uprising and stuff. So go ahead, Elder.
Pa'lante, siempre pa'lante. As a revolutionary, as well as a young lord, I want to extend my appreciation for all your efforts, for all your energy, and your deep devotion in writing the history of the Young Lords Party. Your book is an inspiration for the present as well as for our future struggle. The legacy will always remain in our minds and spirit. Thank you, sister, for your wonderful revolutionary work. Adelante siempre.
Palante siempre, palante, comrade.
Mm.
For the first hour, we're gonna me and Zen, if Alyssa jumps on here, various questions, dig deep into the reading that we all went over and stuff. And then when we get to around 8 o'clock, 8:10, 8:15, we're gonna bring everybody else in, especially the ones that are part of the book reading. We definitely want y'all to uh, uh, speak up on different things that y'all want to ask and stuff like that. So I'm gonna start it off with Joanna. And I want to ask you, what was motivation behind writing this book? I mean, like a long time. Like, how long did it take to write this book?
Wow. Okay. So first of all, it's an honor to be among comrades and this distinguished body of revolutionaries. I'm just happy that people are reading the book. And I wrote it for a new generation of people who want to change the world. I didn't want to write a book for my 4 colleagues. Which is often what happens with academic books. Why did I write the book? I learned about the Young Lords when I was a senior in college. And I grew up in the Bronx, and I was just shocked that I did not know about the organization. I was baffled that they had occupied a hospital where we were all treated when I was growing up. And I was coming of age politically myself, and I was inspired by this badass group of very young people who had large dreams and were deeply committed to organization and discipline. That really blew me away. That people that young could carry out such a disciplined project. And that's what I have for now. And it took many years. I mean, listen, it wasn't easy to gather people. People walk around, people from the 60s walk around with a lot of trauma and distrust, understandably, because of the work of the counterintelligence program of the FBI.
Right.
And I didn't want to do a quick job. I didn't want the Young Lords to think that I was doing this, for some self-serving reason. I was really doing this because I love what they did in the world, and the legacy they left behind for history, for generations and generations to come, the example they set. And so I took my time, and I wrote the book when the book was, I finished the book when it was finished inside of me, which meant that I missed a lot of deadlines. All of my academic deadlines were missed, but I'm happy I took my time.
Right. And I very good job. And speaking about that, I'm gonna go to David Rivera. one of the originals. They kicked it off with Cha Cha. Y'all was like what, the original 7 or 8, Elder?
The original 7, we were 7 of us.
7 of us, and y'all started that in 1959.
In 1959 we got together. Actually, in 1959 we were calling ourselves the Young Knights.
The Young Knights. Wow.
It was back in I believe it was the summer. It was the same summer that West Side Stories came out on.
Okay.
That we actually became Young Lords, which I believe was 61, I believe.
Okay.
The summer of 61.
Okay, so 1950, y'all really started to come together as like a pre-formation of the Young Lords. And then eventually by 1960, 61, y'all became the Young Lords, the street organization.
Yeah. What actually happened was that everybody was going to different elementary schools back then. You got to remember, 59, I was what, 11 years old?
Right.
You know? So I was lucky, what, maybe 5th or 6th grade, something like that.
Right.
And we became Young Lords when Arnold Upper Grade Center was being built and getting ready to open for the next school year. So that the next school year was the summer before that was the summer we became the Young Lords. So yes, about around 61. And we were hanging out, yeah. I would say we were hanging out on Burling and Armitage at the Boiler play lot, which was where we used to hang out. Around Halstead and Armitage area.
And one thing I realized, like watching the first Rainbow Coalition documentary, is that the coming together really was out of necessity. Like y'all had to protect yourself in them neighborhoods due to a lot of the segregation, the white supremacy, the white gangs attacking y'all, chasing y'all home when y'all was I think even the situation when y'all wanted to go to the beach and really assert yourself to saying, look, there ain't nothing to say we can't come over here. So we gonna come over here, even we got bust some heads to stand our ground and say we have a right to come over to this beach just like anybody else. You know what I mean?
And you know, up to about 1968, actually, that's the way it was.
Yeah.
When Chacha got out of jail, he had met Fred, and it was like, I believe around 68 when he came to us and said that we were going to go political, and we became a political organization that summer. We actually officially we came out political as in the Quito de Lares of I believe September 23rd of 68. Was I believe it was 68, yes. So 69 was a pretty busy year.
Okay. You said 23rd, 1968 when y'all officially came out?
Yes, it's a political party or a political organization.
Okay. Taking notes because some of the stuff I feel like some of the documentaries might run through some things, but like you listen Pacific dates right now. So when made that shit, how was that initially when Cha Cha brought that to you to y'all? Because I know Cha Cha was in doing a lot of time. He was talking about how when he was in jail and stuff that he used to listen to the Black Panthers on the radio. He also was talking about how he was like organizing some of the immigrants and stuff. His consciousness up because he was like, look, I'll be in here for stuff I actually do sometimes. And then they got people that's Chicano people off in here with me, and they're only in here because for work issues, and they're attacking the immigrants that's coming in. Oftentimes within our movement, we always talk about they didn't cross the border crossed them anyway. Anybody that know that history, this was part of Mexico, Aslan, you know what I mean, all that stuff. So we definitely look at it a lot deeper within this movement. But how was that when he came to y'all about transitioning from the Young Lords as a street organization and saying, look, we want to be, I want to take us in the same direction the Black Panther Party doing? Like, how was that received?
You know what? For me, I can talk for me personally. When he came to me with that, I said, "Wow, this guy wants me to become a communist." Yeah, you got to remember, I grew up in Chicago.
Right.
My heroes was Davy Crockett, Daniel Boone, the General Custer. Those
Right.
were my heroes. Before I found out that they were actually the people that had us where we are today. But when he came to me, I said, "Wow, this guy wants to go against everything that we stand for." But but when he started telling me about we're going to help people, we're going to help them, it says, "Well, okay, but I ain't no goddamn communist." Okay, don't and that's the honest to God truth. Anybody that says they didn't go through that, it's crazy because we grew up with that.
Right.
That's right.
And at first it was hard. We followed them, and not all of us.
Right.
But the ones that did, we did because we said, well, okay, let's try it. And when we tried it, we found that it was kind of fulfilling to help someone. And this is what we wanted to do. And when it came to the independence of Puerto Rico,
I'm Vincente Alba, Panama. I was a young lord in New York City, and I see Cleo is there too. Cleo Silvers, that's my sister. I owe her my political involvement. Okay, I want to just say that and say hello to everyone.
Power to the people, brother.
All power. Thanks to all the elders being on here. I know it's a number of elders is on here tonight. If I hadn't been got around to all the other elders, just know that we respect y'all. We gonna definitely ask y'all a whole lot of questions too. So pleasure all of y'all that came on today. I wanna bring in Omar. How did when I know you wasn't initially a young lord. You was a part of organization that was a type of organization at the time when you end up interacting with Cha Cha and David and all them. What made you want to join the Young Lord? Why were you inspired to say, you know what, I like these young guys and what they're and sisters and what they're doing, and I want to make this organized with these comrades? Because I know you was probably more politically conscious at that time. You know what I'm saying? And you probably brought a lot of political consciousness with you to a lot of the comrades. Let me unmute yourself. Good.
There you go. There you go. First of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you for the invitation to be with this beautiful group of brothers, warriors, to share our experiences. So thank you for that. Let me tell you, I grew up in the area they call Humboldt Park, Division Street, which is it was another Puerto Rican neighborhood. I had contact with the Young Lords when the Young Lords were still a gang, and I was still hanging around the corner on Division Street. One of the members of the Young Lords was Appalachian White. His name was Kenny Smith. And he used to come and visit us in the corner on Division and Maplewood. And of course, we used to also have our scrimmages with the white gangs that were in the area. Primarily the Italian and Polish gangs. So he used to come and visit us, and of course, say, hey, but let's go look for a fight, right? So we'd go into like Shy West was a gang there, Italians. They would go into the territory, you know, to look for some of them. One time, there was a lot of them. It was a lot more than Kenny and myself. And so we had to run. And he said, you know what? Let's go get my friends to help us. I said, who the hell are your friends? He says, well, the young lords. I said, okay, where are they? You know, Halstead and Armitage. So we took a drive to Halstead and Armitage. Of course, you know, they weren't at the playground, you know, where they used to hang around. So, but that was my first contact with the Young Lords. And it was interesting because it was an Appalachian white member of the Young Lords.
Wow.
I feel fortunate that I was on Division Street, where the Puerto Rican community rebelled for 3 days and 3 nights back in June of 1966. You know, that was a rebellion, 3 days and 3 nights. And it was primarily the youth that were fed up with the kind of police brutality and still displacement of families in the neighborhood.
Right.
So I feel fortunate that I was there because I began to then be conscious of what was going on.
Right.
As a result of the rebellion, there was an organization that was formed that was called the Latin American Defense Organization. My brother was the organizer. And what we did is we started to organize and raise money to get some of the brothers out of jail that were jailed during the rebellion. And so that's how we began to work in the community. So, like you said, you know, I was fortunate that I began to work politically, you know, at age, 18, 19 years of age.
Right.
In 1968, that's when I came in contact with Chacha, early 68. And as a matter of fact, it was in a workshop for community organizers. And he was there with a brother. His name was Ralph Rivera. We used to call him Spaghetti. Spaghetti had just come back from Puerto Rico, and he had gone through one of those political election campaign in Puerto Rico. And, you know, the campaigns in Puerto Rico are a lot different than the political campaigns in the United States. You know, the United States has got boring campaigns, but in Puerto Rico, you got campaigns. You know, you got caravans, you got jingles, you got songs, you got everything. So he came back pretty excited about organizing politically also. And so him and Chacha sort of like combined, you know, their interest in changing the orientation of the Young Lords. So dealing with Ralph and with Chacha, you know, we talked about having to have an identity and a symbol for the Young Lords. And they told me, you know, it would be nice to have the map. It'd be nice to do this. So they gave me all kinds of images. And what I did is I designed the button that became the button of the Young Lords. But it was based on it was based on what Chacha and Spaghetti told me. You know, so but that became our identity.
Okay.
So in that kind of relationship, Chacha then asked me to come and join the Young Lords. You know, so I brought the experience from Division Street to Lincoln Park. And you know, I like to say a little bit more about what David was talking about. Chacha didn't have it easy, you know, convincing the members of the Young Lords to become political. You know, and David already told you, you know, that the reaction was really strong, you know. But nevertheless, you know, Chacha kept trying and explaining to why. Unfortunately, to them, the assassination of Ramos by enough people. The gang was very tight. So
Is
on the rest of the group. And that would be
It's breaking up, hermano.
Yeah, it's breaking up really bad.
Okay. Hey, see if you could come in and back.
The members hanging on the street.
Elder Omar
That did it.
screen is pretty bad.
They're on every side. Everything started happening. The organization really became one.
Okay.
Solid.
We're losing sound.
Yeah.
Kwame?
Yes. He out here good.
Kwame, do you want me to
In and out.
Yeah, you're going in and
Can you hear me now?
we can
Yeah,
hear
we
you.
hear you.
We can hear you.
Yep. Go on.
Your audio is really staticky. It's very glitchy.
try to come leave and come back out. We'll go to Cleo back to you and let you finish what you were saying. Try to leave and come back out.
Yeah, it also sounds like you got a loose connection someplace. Maybe wiggle the wires, the input of your headphones. I don't know if you're wearing any.
Yeah, try to. I was trying leave and come back out.
Yeah,
Let me get to Comrade Cleo. I know a lot of the young lords, like 25% of the young lords, as Johanna was talking about in our book, was Black. You know what I mean? And that's Black, not Puerto Rican Black. You know what I'm saying? Which is Black as well. And I like that she spoke about a lot of different things in regards to that, and we're gonna get to that. Like, what was the relationship that you had coming in? Because I know you started off as a Black Panther, right? And then you became a young lord.
Yeah, that's
could you talk about that transition that you made from being a Black Panther to becoming a young lord?
Yeah, I thank you, Comrade Kwame, for the question. I just want to say to all of my comrades, Johanna, Panama, and all the other comrades that I see on here, Sister Naima. I love y'all, and it is wonderful to see y'all. I haven't seen you in a long time, so it's really wonderful. So now to the question. First of all, the organizing work in the South Bronx and in the city of New York was always, at least where I was, and especially around the Lincoln Hospital mental health workers situation, was always a united between the Puerto Rican community, which was 60% of that neighborhood, and African American community, which was about 40% of the neighborhood. But my experience when coming into New York City and coming into the South Bronx was that the Puerto Ricans and the Blacks lived together in the same buildings. So it was very difficult to organize, say, a building, a rent strike in a building, without coming in contact with both African Americans and Puerto Ricans who were living together and had to work together in order to be successful in a thing like a rent strike, which we were organizing a great deal of. That Blacks and Puerto Ricans were subject to the same kind of exploitation and oppression that was coming down from the system, so that we ended up having to organize. If we were going to organize against that oppression and exploitation, we ended up having to organize together in order to gain any kind of success. Now, because of that, the people who were the activists, the community activists, recognized that, starting from Sister Evelina Antonetti, who organized United Bronx Parents, who had the Black Panthers come in as her security. And when she was getting ready to take an action, for instance, against the school board, her security people were the Black Panther Party. This is before the Young Lords even got organized, okay? And I began to meet members of the Young Lords and the the new group of people that were coming in to start organizing in the South Bronx and in East Harlem. As a result of that, organizations and young people being active in the community. So and the other thing is that there were coalitions going on. There was coalition building going on among activists, so that the Young Lords, the Black Panthers, and Iwakun, which was the Asian organization, and the White Panther Party and the White Patriots, they all were organizing together and living together. So we lived in collectives, and this is another thing that I like to raise when I'm talking to young people, is that you should know that you can't be successful without having tremendous trust in each other. And one way to have trust is to live together.
Right, right.
Okay, and one way to mitigate against the economic situation that you're faced with, that we all face with, is to build collectives and to live in collectives.
Right.
But anyway, how I ended up in the Young Lords was that there was a split in the Black Panther Party after the New York 21 was arrested, and Zaid Shakur and Lamuba Shakur and Brother Rashid walked me, who were friends with the Central Committee of the Young Lords, and they walked me over to from the Harlem office of the Black Panther Party over to East Harlem, the Young Lords office, and asked the Young Lords if they would consider my becoming a member of the Young Lords so that I could continue the organizing work that we have begun around the hospital.
Okay.
That's how I became a member of the Young Lords. And of course, I already knew most of the comrades, and we already were living together in pads. But I think, Panama, you probably should take this question up a little bit too. Since
my experience was somewhat different. I think I was a drug addict. Let me just say that straight up. I was shooting dope. I was shooting dope since I was 14 years old. And our community was plagued with drugs. They estimated that in the South Bronx, 15% of the population was addicted to heroin. And when you talk about the population, you're talking about from a newborn baby to an elderly ready to pass on to the other world. Okay.
Right.
The concentration of that addiction was in young teenagers like myself and young adults. Okay.
Right.
So I used to walk around the South Bronx chasing the best bag of dope, and in that process, I met Cleo. And Cleo was a pastor at the time. Okay.
Okay.
So Cleo, she would rap to me, and you gotta get off that shit, Panama, They call me Panama, but I'm Panamanian actually. Okay, just to make that clear. And she kept talking to me, and one day we were sitting on her stoop talking, and she tells me, as much as you hate the cops, look at what they're doing. And she pointed down the block, and there was a patrol car parked. And the cop was actually selling bags of dope out of the patrol car. And she said, "What do you give your money to? The same people you hate." Okay? So, that really got me thinking. Okay? That really got me thinking. I said, shit, and I got to get off this shit. Cleo told me, listen, the day that you want to get off that shit, give me a call. Okay? And I'll help you. By coincidence, by mere coincidence, I decided to stop shooting dope and call Cleo and tell her, listen, I'm ready to do this. And in my mind, I had originally thought about joining the Black Panther Party. And the reason was because they were the ones that were that you read and saw on TV that were fighting back. I didn't know about the Young Lords until I saw the news when they took over the church. But I didn't know Young Lords except that
On July the 4th, 1970, I never forget the day. It was a Saturday. I was at the beach, Orchard Beach in the Bronx. We were all hanging out, getting high, and watching the girls go by and all the rest of that. And a police riot broke out on the beach. And we're fighting against the cops. And in the middle of that, I run into my high school teacher who had stopped being a teacher and disappeared. And I find out that day he was leading a team of young lords that was selling palantes on the beach. And all of a sudden, I'm fighting next to my high school teacher against the cops. And I said to myself, it doesn't get any better than this. It doesn't get any better. Anyway, I called Cleo. I went down to Lincoln Hospital, and they had taken over the nurses' residence that morning to start a substance abuse, a detox program. Okay. And I had started kicking a heroin habit. And that's how I got linked up with Cleo, with the South Bronx Drug Coalition. And that's how I joined the Young Lords.
All power to the people. All power to the people. That's what's up.
All power to the people. All power to the people. Beautiful story.
I want to bring Che in. I think the prison talking Panama was talking about how like he had ended up joining from the streets, you know what I mean? And that's one thing that we love about the original Black Panther Party and the original Young Lords. Y'all was community based. Like y'all related to the lumpen proletariat, y'all related to the proletariat, y'all related to the masses of oppressed people, the colonized oppressed masses right there in your community. I want in because one thing is the Prison Liberation Front, which was also a major part of the original Black Panthers and the Young Lords message, organizing within inside the prison. And Che being the first chairman of the Young Lords in the New York State prison system and an addict survivor, I think he can speak a little bit about that aspect of the organizing that was happening at that time in prison. Like, how did you become to unite with the Black Panther Party and then the Young Lords, comrade Elder Che?
I have a long history of struggle in prison. I started out as a 5%er. And I went to prison when I was 14. They gave me 15 years for a murder that I honestly don't feel that I committed. It was a self-defense. The person took out a knife on me and I took it away from him. So my only other choice was to stab him. I was in a gang fight, and I belonged to a gang at the time. And so I went to prison. To make the long story short, because there's a long history, I'm going to go to because I jumped from various organizations at the very beginning. I was part of the Muslims. I became a 5%er, and then I became a Panther. But I want to start with the Panthers because it was in 1968 in Auburn prison that I met the Panthers, and I definitely fell in love with their teachings. They were talking some good shit, man. And so I got involved. And in the process, we was getting ready to organize something against they had the license plates in Auburn, and all the license plates that go out to the cars in the streets, they all come from Auburn prison, so we were getting ready to do something for to have a strike on that, and the administration happened to get involved in it. And so they picked up a few of us and transferred us to Attica, and in Attica, it was at that point, man, that I felt that it was necessary to develop a Latino organization, because Latinos they didn't have anything, and I felt, and I picked the Young Laws, but we didn't have no 13-point program. We was using the 10-point program, to educate. And so I became a chairman, and I started organizing in Attica. And then by a month's time, we had about good 20 people, and the party was getting big. And so we decided to put, everybody decided to take an official position, like Minister of Education, Minister of Information, et cetera. And we was gonna have a strike in the metal shop, and the administration took heed of this and transferred me to Green Haven. And it was at Green Haven that I met my glorious brother, man. I must say, G.I. Paris, Jose Paris. He was a beautiful brother, man. I met him there, and he said, well, what you want to do, Che? I said, well, listen, man, I started an organization in Attica. Let's do it here. So we started organizing the Young Lofts in Green Haven. And from time to time, we was growing, and we grew larger than the one in Attica. And Jose is very desperate, man. That was a brother, man, that was always desperate, man. He's always doing things. He couldn't stay still. He was constantly moving. But he's a beautiful brother. He had a beautiful heart. And so they picked us up. They transferred me and GI back to Attica together. And it was in Attica that we began organizing for the metal shop strike. But it didn't happen. So we kept on fighting for that, and then, the party grew with the Panthers, and out of that came the People's Party. And the People's Party was basically an organization to address the administration. We didn't want to address it directly. So the People's Party was an organization to address that. And so they started doing that. And they met with the who was that? The commissioner? I forgot his name. Yeah, forgive me, man. I'm 76, and I lose some thoughts. But
take Red.
Yeah, you did well.
It's only part of life. It's only part of life. So they met with the commissioner, and he said, "Yeah, okay, we're gonna look into it," because they also established a platform, like some demands that they called the manifesto,
Right.
and they presented it to the commissioner, and the commissioner said, "Yeah, we're gonna look into this," and they said, but they never did anything,
Exactly.
and it kept on going and going and going and going and going. And out of that, the People's Party came the Attica Liberation Fraction. And the Attica Liberation Fraction was the organization that was directly involved in aggressively addressing those issues with the administration.
Right.
And so they did that, and nothing came out of it, and then, as time go on, George Jackson got killed,
Right.
and we did the Young Laws in Green Haven, Green Haven, Attica, along with the Panthers, we decided to have what you call that?
Commemoration.
Yeah, nobody was going to eat. Everybody was going to walk into the mess hall, pick your utensils, sit down, don't say shit, stay silent, and then get up and then leave. That's how it was, And the administration got very angry because they knew that the People's Party and the Liberation Fraction and the Young Laws and the Panthers had something to do with it. So 2 weeks later, the Attica jumped off.
Right.
And I want to start there because I want to break into that as a separate conversation that's of its own, because I think we should pick apart a lot of the stuff that went on, just like the takeover with Cleo and her being a part of what was it, HRUM, yeah, and the Lincoln Lincoln committee. Although I want to pick apart all that, but I want to take a step back because one thing that you wrote about in your book, Johanna, that I thought was insightful, that all revolutionaries always go back to their historical past and resurrect a lot of their legends. You know what I'm saying? And this is one of the things I see that the Young Lords Party did. On page 214, I'm going to read this passage that you wrote. You said, in the conceptualization of island independence, the Young Lords were influenced by the mythic militancy of the father of the Puerto Rican nationalism, Don Pedro Albizu Campos, who in the early 1930s redirected the efforts of the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party from electoral politics to armed struggle for independence.
Mm-hmm.
Like their newly politicized counterparts in the Black movement who studied the life and speeches of Malcolm X, the Young Lords were determined to reclaim their most radical leaders, including not only Albizu Campos, but also the Socialist Nationalist Party leader Juan Antonio Cortier. I want to say that's how you say his last name. Yeah, for the against struggle against colonialism. To this end, the Young Lords studied and archived in Palante the lessons of the two major periods in Puerto Rico's war for independence. The first phase, led by Emeterio Batantes, Juan Gonzalez wrote, quote, in El Grito de Lores, 1868, we were saying we are not Spaniards. We are the mixture of African and Indian, born in Boricuen, speaking Spanish, an island nation oppressed by the Spanish Empire.
Right.
I thought that was very, very influential of how they started to resurrect, just like us. We resurrecting, and some of y'all are living, y'all living today. You know what I'm saying? That's why y'all on here, because we look at y'all in the same way that the Young Lords looked at Pedro Albizu Campos and what was going on in the island that some of y'all was familiar with. Could you speak a little bit to the influence of like Pedro Albizu Campos and the legacy of resistance and some of the stuff that was going on during his time, like even his being sent to prison and tortured and the radiation, all this other stuff. But this was like inspiring to a lot of Puerto Ricans that knew that part of their history. Like today, we look up to Fred Hampton. We have Cha-Cha alive today. We still look up to Huey P. Newt, George Jackson. These are the people we resurrect in our generation. And I think every revolutionary looks at their revolutionaries in the past and they become a symbol of resistance. Could you speak a little bit of the Puerto Rican independence movement with people like Pedro Albizu Campos, how they influenced the Young Lords Party in this regard?
Okay.
You muted.
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, that's a question for you.
Okay, before I say that, I just want to say that we have Young Lords from Chicago here and Young Lords from New York. And you know, I did start out by talking about being from the Bronx and Lincoln Hospital and that occupation. But I think it's important to say that the transformation from street organization of the Young Lords to political organization was epic, Herculean.
Yes.
Without that transformation and that work done by David, Cha-Cha, Omar, and so many others, like not just the Black Panthers, but a whole lot of other organizations really saw the the significance of going to the grassroots, to the least of these,
Yes, ma'am.
and transforming that body of people, much like Vincente Alba was transformed by Cleo and the New York Young Lords. That work is, is revolutionary God's work. And without that, there is no Rainbow Coalition, in fact, to tell you the truth, because you don't really have a Rainbow Coalition with Black Americans and white Americans in Chicago. And it wasn't until Fred Hampton went to this conference, the Third World Student Conference in 1969, that he met Cha-Cha and the Puerto Rican and Mexican young lords, that that rainbow idea really gets lit up in his head. I just want to say this because there's a lot more work that needs to be done to recuperate the history of that transformation, and the Chicago group, which also established a model to follow for New York around the occupations. It was the Chicago group that occupied the seminary, and that really changed things. It really gave a model to follow for the New York Young Lords. So, Don Pedro Albizu Campos.
And I appreciate that segue, because I do realize that this book is focused a lot on New York, but that history without the Chicago would never catapulted the New York history that we know and legacy that we know of today. So I appreciate that.
My favorite chapter is chapter 1 on Chicago.
Yes, you gotta read this book.
So hats off to the Chicago movement, because also in Chicago you have a lot more of a class struggle across racial lines than in New York, because in Chicago you actually have a white working class, right? That you don't have as much in New York City, a white working class. It's Puerto Ricans and Black Americans who are on the whole the working class, and then there's this very large white middle class in New York. So the politics of Chicago really are vanguard. That's why it emerges. That's why the Rainbow Coalition emerges in Chicago, because the economic structure of Chicago really is calling for the class structure of Chicago is still calling for a Rainbow Coalition. Others should talk about Don Pedro Albizu Campos. Panama is in Puerto Rico. Omar, David, Cleo know this history. But essentially, the fact that Don Pedro Albizu Campos shifts the politics of the Nationalist Party from electoralism at a moment that he believes and the Nationalist Party believes is ripe to an armed struggle against U.S. imperialism, says it all. The Young Lords were revolutionary Puerto Rican nationalists, right? First and foremost, they believed in the liberation of Puerto Rico from colonial rule, and so Don Pedro Albizu Campos is central to that struggle, to theorizing what that means and actually putting it into practice. But also, he was a political prisoner. He was a political prisoner throughout the 1960s, right? And in many ways, the Young Lords, aware of this before they became Young Lords, are carrying on that tradition. And that's what we're doing now. Like, that's our assignment. The moral assignment of our generation is to carry on a tradition for human liberation. And in the tradition of party building, part of what we learn is that, you build movements, you build a party, but you're connected to the grassroots. like
Right.
like Cleo started. You know, Cleo is an incredible organizer, as is Omar and his brother, right? These people were linked and organized in the midst of the riots in Chicago in 1966.
Right.
They were there to say, what do we do after the explosion? How do we carry on and discipline and politicize this potentially revolutionary energy? I just want to end by saying that what the Young Lords bring to the nationalist struggle in Chicago and in New York is connection to the grassroots. There's no more grassroots institution than a street organization.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the grievances, right?
Yeah.
Cleo talked about the housing crisis in the South Bronx, where 80% of the housing was unfit for human habitation. And when you are organizing in these buildings, Black Americans are living alongside of Puerto Ricans. In Chicago, I'm saying this because ultimately we want this to mean something. And right now we have a situation wherein activism happens online, right? But we cannot move the needle forward without connecting ourselves to the grievances of people at the bottom of society, the working class of all races.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
And in
All
Chicago,
power.
urban renewal was one of the linchpin issues that brought together the Young Lords.
Right.
The fact that Puerto Ricans were massively being displaced by urban renewal, which was the gentrification of that time, but also the killing of one of their own, Manuel Ramos, and the kind of organizing that happened to avenge his death.
Right. And that right there, that last point, it was connected straight to the community. I think you said that at the very beginning, at the end in the title, that last chapter where you said was talking about what works. I thought that was very profound. First and foremost, if your intention is to build a movement that responds to the conditions of real people, there is no substitute for hands-on organizing on the ground and at the local level. I think that's key. Like Comrade Africa is on here right now. He's the captain of for the new African Black Panther Party. One thing they're been doing fighting out there is Ras Baraka. Like he's Ras Baraka has been and we all know the history of Ras Baraka. He's been upholding a lot of the gentrification that's going on out there. A lot of the housing evictions. And this is a person that's Amari Baraka's son. That came in talking about revolutionary and talking about Black Panther this and that. But like the community out in Newark, New Jersey has been speaking out about what's really going on. You know what I'm saying? And one of the things like I admire by like Captain Africa and Comrade General Secretary of the New African Black Panther Party, Paces, like one of the things that hands-on part, like like when I talk to them on the phone, like Patience and them is talking to people that's been evicted from their houses and coming out there and going out there and supporting these comrades and figuring out different ways how they can try to get them housed and try to find housing for them. Same thing with our Poor People's Army. That's what they do. They take over houses from HUD. You know what I mean? They're probably one of our most revolutionary veteran organizations. They've been around 30, 40 years within this movement. A lot of our organizations is like recent, really within the last 10 years or even less. But they've been around for a long time. And for the fact that, you know, that's their strategy. Like they're out there actually organizing people that's homeless. Most of the people in the Poor People's Army was formerly homeless. So like we emphasize, and I want to say this one more time, and I want to bring our comrade Zen in because I'm pretty sure she has some questions for y'all. But you said first and foremost, you said what works? What works? You said first and foremost, if your intention is to build a movement that responds to the conditions of real people, there is no substitute for hands-on organizing on the ground at the local level. I think that's really what we get from the Black Panther Party and the Young Lords. Like when we talk about Mao Zedong and the mass line, like that was the survival programs. They institutionalized that within the community, and they brought the community in to feel a part of those institutions, like they were their institutions. Did you want to say something, Cleo?
Yeah, I did. One part of hands-on, boots on the ground, if you will, is educating the community, because you cannot organize without educating, which means that as you organize, you have to explain why it's necessary, what it includes, and who the enemy is. So sometimes you can't talk to everybody at the same time. That means you need to have a newspaper. That means you need to have flyers. That means that you need to stand on the corner. And when you stand on the corner, you talk to each person as you hand them the flyer, explaining to them what's in the flyer and what they have to do. Can you come to the meeting? Everybody's not going to be able to come to the meeting, but they got the information. Now they know what you're doing. So it's more than just going out there and organizing. It is organizing, also gaining support from the rest of the community because they understand what is going on. So I just wanted to raise that and how important it is to have that information going out to the community simultaneously as you engage in the struggle. So
absolutely.
If I may say something about this boots on the ground organizing, and I think it's very important. I think that as of the time of the development of the internet and all these communication programs, many people have lost sight that organizing means talking with people, not talking to people.
Right.
Because if we want to organize, we have to first listen to our people, understand where our people are at. Because you don't organize from where you would like them to be. You have to start organizing from where they are at. And in order to understand that, you have to listen to them. Okay?
Absolutely.
You have to hear their thinking. So you can understand how to move them from that point forward. A lot of people now rely on Facebook and all this other stuff. You know, I think that because they blast to 2,000 people, that they're organizing people. You're informing them, but you're not organizing them. You know, when you speak with someone that you are trying to organize, they need to be able to look at you in the eyes. And they need to be able to see whether they believe you are sincere about what you're talking about. Oh, you just screwing out the... It's one thing for me to talk to you like this, and it's another thing for me to talk to you like this. See, it's very different. And we are losing that concept of on the boots organizing. And we need to reestablish it. Because it's the most important thing that we do.
And
absolutely. Go ahead.
Say speaking to people and hearing what their issues are, and we don't need to yell and scream. What we need to do is go day to day and be in that person's space, be in their home, you know, sitting down and playing with their kids. That's how you organize people, when they respect you and they know that you're working in their interests. So I just want to, I want to reiterate what Panama is talking about and getting down to the real details of what you have to do if you're organizing. Real organizing. Getting people's homes.
Makes a good point. Like when me and High Thurman was on the book tour, and it was people used to ask like, how do we do what you're saying? And I said one of the things that we got to keep in mind is that it's like consciousness is like we all wake up at different times. Like everybody woke up at different times today. You know what I mean? It's just like consciousness. Like we wake up at different times. So it's a process. Like Huey P. Newton said, it's a process. Revolution is a process. It's not an event. And when I look at like my conscious raising, it didn't happen like overnight on some of these issues. And I'm still learning on a lot of different issues. You know what I'm saying? Like education never stops. And I think one thing we have to remember is when we do start to get any level of consciousness, we remember where we came from. We remember where we came from. And so we don't speak over people's head. We use all this intellectual jargon that we know individuals don't even understand what we're talking about. What we call intellectual masturbation among some of us sometimes. But that type of stuff is like is condescending, and it's not relating to the people that you're dealing with. One of the person that got me to read, he was illiterate. He taught himself to read and write in prison. And it reminds me of Mao Zedong when he talked about how, the peasants, the illiterate can lead the literate. You know what I'm saying? The most uneducated can lead the most educated. You know what I'm saying? And it's about relating to the people. You know what I'm saying? I want to bring my comrade Zen in because I know you got a lot of questions. I want you to start off with some of your questions for bring Omar and David Rivera back in this conversation.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Comrade. Before I dive into my questions, since I see that Comrade Omar is back with us, Omar, I would like to give you the opportunity to finish what you were saying earlier when we lost your audio.
Oh, yeah.
We definitely want to hear the rest of your thoughts on that.
All power to the people.
All power to the people. Your mic is off.
He's frozen.
Oh, I saw his mic go off of mute for a moment and then back to mute.
There he is. Hey, there he is.
Hey.
Omar, are you there?
Now I was saying the
Same thing.
Oh.
Oh no, his audio.
Yeah, I think there's a loose connection someplace.
You froze again, Comrade Omar.
Maybe he can call from his phone. It might be better to call from his phone.
I'm on mute. Everybody now?
Yeah, if you can try to call from your phone, then at least we can get clear audio from you.
Yeah, most likely.
And
well, while we're on the low waiting for Comrade Omar, because I want to hear what he had to say too. I also want to say there was a question somebody raised about how do you keep men involved in the organization. And I just want to say real revolutionaries don't have a minute of the day to not be revolutionary and not be organizing or building their organization or writing their newspaper or getting their newspaper published or organizing, sitting down at meetings. You never have a moment of that you are not doing revolutionary work. So you have to be involved. You got to come to the political education classes. You got to go and be organizing in the community. You got to sell your newspapers. You got to come over to the house where you live in and you got to help keep it clean. You got to cook dinner. You got to do all of those things. And you got to go to the high schools and you got to go wherever you have to go. You got to go to the plants where the workers are working at, to the hospital. You got to be there all the time. Lincoln Committee was a 24-hour operation because the emergency room is a 24-hour operation. So you have to be in the emergency room and take it down complaints for 24 hours. And if nobody comes to relieve you, you still got to be there because that's doing the real work that has to be done. There's no time to be going out and doing some other stuff unless you're going out with the other revolutionaries and discussing planning and discussing strategy. And it's all those things have to be done on a daily basis and on an hourly basis, 24 hours a day. Revolutionary, as far as the Young Lords was concerned, was a 25-hour-a-day operation. If I remember correctly.
Yeah,
and that's
20.
what it is.
I think Omar is on.
day,
I think Omar is on his phone.
Did he get on his
I'm
phone?
on. Can you hear me?
I think so. Yeah, there
okay.
he is.
Thank you, brother.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello?
Perfect.
Yes, we can hear you, comrade.
All right. Great. Well, one of the things that I was saying while I was on the speaker was that the big difference with the Young Lords was, first of all, it was a lumpen organization that had contacts in the networks in the neighborhood already. So one of the things that made us very, very, very powerful was the fact that we didn't have to organize anybody. I mean, the Young Lords were already organized, and that made us pretty effective. The fact that we used to be able to put out 1,000 people on the street overnight was, because the networks were there. We didn't have the telephones, to be able to contact 1,000 people at a time, but we had the networks. We told the cadres, tomorrow we're marching, or tomorrow we have a rally, and the word went out. So I think that we had that was part of the phenomena of the Young Lords that made us pretty effective and powerful. So yeah, going back to the fact that we have to remain very close to the grassroots, very close to the base. Otherwise, you lose it, and you have to listen all the time. Like you were saying, the brother Panama was mentioning the fact that you have to talk. It starts where they are, not where you think they should be. So that was part of the explanation I was trying to share with you before.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Comrade Omar.
Right on.
All right. My first question is for Johanna. As you were going through doing the research and interviewing people to be able to write this book, what moments stuck out to you the most, were the most revolutionizing to your mind?
Oh my God, there are no one moments, but what I understand, or what kept me writing the book, is or was that all the people I interviewed, Omar, Cleo, Panama, Cha-Cha, these were the most articulate people I've ever heard in my life. These were the most clear people in terms of understanding the problems of the world and how to move forward toward a solution. I love Cha-Cha. Like, Cha-Cha is still my favorite Young Lord. Cha-Cha's stories are human, they're hilarious, and revolutionary. That story about the beach, when he was telling, I was trying to understand the gang, and it was clear to me that because the gang was defending itself against white reaction to Puerto Rican and Black American presence and Mexican American presence in the city, it had a political caricature to it, whether it was obvious to its members or not. Right. So it was clear to me as he was telling me the stories of how they were desegregating public space, that the Young Lords and these gangs, they were doing desegregation civil rights work outside of the civil rights movement.
Yes.
It became clear to me that the Young Lords was connected to all of these networks, and that's why they could have these large demonstrations. I I mean, there's no one thing. You know, I'm recalling the moment when Richie Perez, who is a young lord from New York, told me that a soldier, an Afro-Puerto Rican soldier, sent the young lords in New York a letter so that the young lords could be present at his court hearing. He was being court-martialed. He had been part of a rebellion inside of the military prisons. And Richie Perez told me, oh, we actually fought the military police at Fort Dix in New Jersey. And I thought it was a tall tale. I'm like, how is it possible that these kids are going to fight the military police and are not going to get killed? And I was incredulous. I didn't believe. I went and I found the records at the Tamament Library, which proved that, in fact, the young lords fought the military police at Fort Dix in New Jersey. What is clear about this period is that it was a revolutionary period. That revolution was in the air in ways that we don't necessarily see right now. And what Cleo mentioned is important. And this is why a revolutionary party is important, because absent a revolutionary situation or revolution being in the air, how do you figure out your activities day to day connected to the grassroots? Political education is critical. Actually, it's critical in a revolutionary situation and in a non-revolutionary situation. So the people I interviewed were very, very clear about the significance of building the Young Lords, the regular activities of the organization, the newspaper, the flyers, the meetings, and figuring out. Part of what they said is that we were at every turn in a meeting talking about and assessing the period to figure out how we were going to intervene.
Thank you, Johanna. I figured there would be multiple moments that would come to mind. I love that you touched on ones with each of the individuals here that you interviewed. You did a beautiful job putting this book together, and I greatly appreciate it. This has been an awesome read. My next question is for Sister Cleo. First, hi, welcome back. It's been a hot minute since I've gotten to see you, and I've missed you. So I love that you were able to join us today. I was wondering, as far as with your experience, what was it that influenced and inspired you in your healthcare work to become more radically involved to change the system?
Thank you, Sister Trish. Actually, that's another excellent question, and it was pretty simple. I was a community organizer. I was organizing in housing. And when you organize in anything, you meet not only the issues that you're organizing around, but all the other issues that are being faced by individuals in the community and the people you come in contact with. So if somebody's got a housing problem, they probably have a child that developed brain damage from ingesting lead poisoning. They also probably need somebody to go with them to the emergency room, and you see how horribly they're being treated in the emergency room at a place like Lincoln Hospital. You also see that they are afraid for the social worker to be coming to the house because they're going to find a man's clothing or something in the closet. There's all these things that are happening to people, and that if you find a family that's facing one issue, you'll find they're facing all these other issues. So the immediate thing that I learned was that it was a systematic thing. It's not just housing, it's not just education, it's not just healthcare, but in fact, it is all of these problems, and the system is established in such a way as to be completely coming down in a horrible way in the lives of many, many individuals. So that's where my inspiration came to become revolutionary in my struggle of understanding. The other part to that is that when I was at Lincoln Hospital, organizing as a worker there, the Black Panthers came in and supported the struggle when the healthcare workers mental health workers took over. So first thing they did when they came in was education. Here, you want to sit down and go in the study group, be in my study group? Yes, of course I want to be in your study group. Oh, you the sister that's giving out the flyers, explaining to the community what's going on. Yeah, so they recruited me into the organization because of the work that I was doing. But the point is that I was beginning to clearly understand that it was more than just one issue, but that it was the system that was barreling down on communities of color. And it was so clear, it came to my eyes, so just like the sun came out in my life. And I learned that we have to fight this. We have to fight it from every perspective. And one of the most important things that was going on is that people were dying in Lincoln Hospital. That the emergency room, people in the community, and I don't care. Oh, another important thing is that Puerto Ricans could go to the emergency room and not be able to communicate with their doctor because they didn't speak the language. They needed to have a translator come with them. And many times the translator would be your child. Well, that's a terrible thing. You don't want to engage little 9-year-old children in explaining complicated medical questions to their parents or to the doctor. So that was a big struggle. But there were so many things that were happening to people, and that when you're there with them and you're experiencing it too, it makes you revolutionary. Either you become revolutionary or you go in the other direction. But to really experience the pain that people are going through every day, and you're right there in the community, you live in the building with them, and you hear them, you hear their families, and you see what the effect of psychotropic drugs is, for instance. There were so many things going on and so many things happening to people in the community, but there was no way in hell that I would not pull it together as an intelligent person. You're like, oh shit, all this stuff is big, and there are all these systems that are developed, and it's coming from the government. It's pretty clear that that's what's happening to people, and that we have to fight. So I'm sorry, that's the answer to how did I become like revolutionary and get involved in the struggle, especially in healthcare. It's because they would treat the people so bad and killing people up in the hospital. And families that I was working with were the experience of this. It wasn't just happening to other people, but it's people that I knew, people I was working with on a day-to-day basis.
Right. From everything that I've read about what was going on in Lincoln Hospital at the time, everybody referred to the place as a fucking butcher shop.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what it was.
What? Yeah, it was bad. Yeah.
Sterilizing women.
Mm-hmm. And I can't recall her name now, but the woman who died going in for an abortion just a few days after the takeover of the hospital, like that was heart-wrenching.
Yeah, Carmen Rodriguez, a beautiful sister. She had a rheumatoid heart issue. Rheumatic, in other words, she had rheumatic fever.
Right.
She also had high blood pressure, and salt raises your high blood pressure, and they gave her a saline abortion without reading her chart. All they had to do was read her chart and find out that she had high blood pressure, and they wouldn't have given her a saline abortion, but they did, because they just didn't care. They didn't pay attention to really what was going on among our people. So that's that. And they still don't, by the way. They're still not reading your chart and really giving you quality health care.
No, they're not. You need a health advocate when you go into these hospitals.
Right. Sister Naima.
I am here. I am listening.
Yeah, sadly, that is something that still does carry on. I know people who have died for similar reasons because they didn't read their charts and see what pre-existing conditions they already had before going and giving a medication that killed them. And it's heart-wrenching. It doesn't take but a moment to read somebody's chart and be able to see what you're working with before
It's the
going.
education of Dr. Sister Trish. It's the education of the medical field. Is that they're educated to believe that they're the smartest people in the country and that they're smarter than any patient. And how dare you tell them that they might want to read your chart before they treat you. You know, it's those kind of attitudes that take place, which is why we were organizing the young doctors, because we had to give them political education as well, so that they understood where we were coming from, why we were fighting inside the hospital, why we needed their help to explain things to us and to help us struggle internally inside the hospital.
Right. They need to learn how to listen to the patients, because only the patient can tell you what they are experiencing, what they are dealing with, what they've already been through, and be able to elaborate on that to actually give the doctors, the nurses, the rest of the staff some level of awareness first, you know. I see Joe and Panther Queen have your hands up. So I'm guessing you guys either have some questions or some input about this particular subject or question. Go ahead, Comrade Joe.
Yes, I was just wanted to say that I was really grateful and I was like excited for tonight's study group and the panel of elders that came on. So thank you, elders, that took the time to come on this evening, and all those that joined in as well. But one of the things I wanted to get was like maybe if each of the elders could give like a specific quote or a specific saying or something that resonated with them over their lifetime of being activists and revolutionaries, that us in the future as revolutionary brothers and sisters can carry on with, if that could be possible.
I could tell you, I could tell you one. And this may sound far-fetched, but Che Guevara said that true revolutionaries are guided by deep feelings of love. And I think that's very important, because when I wanted to join the movement, because I was angry. See, I was angry. I learned in the Young Lords to love my people. They taught me about loving our people.
Right.
And I didn't know that when I came into the movement, because my thing was just anger. I wanted to fight back. They fuck with us, we fuck with them. You know, that was the attitude that I came with. And they radically changed that. Because from being in the Young Lords to the day I die, I love my people. And that's what motivates me to do what I do. And I think that's what should motivate all of us to do what we do.
Definitely the same here. But my saying is, Fred Hampton says it's a class struggle, goddammit.
Always has been.
What Chase said.
If I can follow that up, my camera for some reason isn't working, but this is Carlos. I would say two things following Brother Vincent. Another Che quote is, we have to be practical and do the impossible.
Yes.
And the other one that I came up with was, we need to make things happen. We just can't watch them happen, and definitely never be in a situation where you have to ask, what happened?
Oh, hell no.
I know we have a couple of other elders also. Any of the other elders here tonight would like to speak?
Yeah, well, I like I like to share mine, you know, and I guess it's now in my old age that this one comes up all the time when I to young people and students, and that is a quote from Chairman Mao when he was addressing the Chinese Communist youth. He told them, "This is the world is yours as well as ours, but in the final analysis, the world is yours." So we really have to encourage the young people to get involved and be committed. You know, that stuck to my head, and that's what I share with the young people today. It's their world.
It's your world. What kind of world do you want?
Exactly.
This is Naima. Cleo invited me. I'm an old head, and I want to say hey to Cha-Cha. We met to talk about how we got involved in Chicago. And somebody said September 1968. I remember as a teenager in Chicago in 66 and 67, going to meetings on the North Side with, I think they were young lords, they might have been still young knights, young patriots, and Black youth from the South Side and the West Side. And those of us who grew up in Chicago, you did not cross those borders back in the day. That itself was revolutionary. Chicago was and is probably still the most segregated city in this country.
That's right.
And the police run it. They ran it then, and they're running it now. The media will have you believing that fighting formations or gang related or whatever are running it. No, the police are running it. That is the largest organized city of Chicago. So for young people to cross those borders, South Side, West Side, meeting with young patriots, white working class kids, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, that in itself was revolutionary. And we weren't specifically operating within the formal civil rights movement. Black Panther Party organizing was very new in Chicago. And so that is how I remember it. And there's film documentation of these meetings. 67, I'm thinking 67 because by 68, I was already in California with the Black Panther Party. But I had those meetings with young patriots, young knights / young lords, and others from many fighting formations and, young Black teenagers, brown, white, in the city of Chicago. Generally around violence, police violence, unfair treatment in the schools, a lot of so-called delinquency programs, unfair suspensions and detentions, all of that is what Cleo said about when you're organizing with people at the grassroots, we meet them where they are. People will bring you everything, and it takes energy, determination, and a whole lot of love and anger to mix in there and organize and get work done for people to change their lives. We're not changing people's lives. We're working with people for systemic change to change their lives. That's how I remember it. And that's how I became a combination of anger and love.
Yeah.
All power to the people.
All of the young people today who are getting involved and asking all the right questions and educating themselves and reaching out to elders and experienced organizers who have the history so that we can correct a lot of misinformation and miseducation that's out there. So thank you for inviting me, Cleo.
Absolutely. All power to the people.
Okay.
We have 20 minutes that some of the elders and might be getting off of here. Some might questions for individuals, but I just want to let y'all know 20 more minutes to get it as many questions as y'all want in. Go ahead, Zen.
My next question is for Comrade Che. How was your activism in Attica influenced by the Young Lords and the Black Panthers community actions on the outside?
Well, at first we had problems with the outside in '69, and it was during that time that the Young Lords was formulating in '69. I had to wait until 1970 in order to send a message out, to the Young Lords so that they could give.
Ooh, froze.
The mic is
Which we
off.
did.
Faded out.
Could you yeah, no, I'm
Can you hear us, Che?
Your signal's breaking up, Che.
Oh man.
We can't hear you. Oh, now we can.
Now, can you explain that again?
I'm sorry, you broke up for a moment there while you were talking. You were saying that it took you some time to be able to get a message to the outside, and then your audio cut.
Yeah, to the Young Lords in order to get the authorization to become a Young Lord. We became Young Lords eventually in '70 by the authorization of the party, and we just continue. Is that basically what you wanted to know? Is there something else that I left out?
I was more curious, like if there was something that they were doing in their education and their boots on the groundwork that helped you be able to lead the Young Lords inside the prison when it came to your actions there.
Oh, okay. Well, it was hard because we was on top. We was in prison, and we was constantly being watched by the guards. So everything we did was under supervision. We of course we had military exercises, that we developed. We also developed our political education classes we had on Sundays. We had our political education, and on Wednesdays we used to have open house for people to come and listen to us, and that way that was our method of organizing the masses of people, but we had a pretty fair organization. We had a minister of education, which was one of the brothers, man, who sat in the observers committee during the Attica Rebellion. We also had a minister of defense, which was another brother that was also in the Attica Rebellion. So we did good. We used to run around the yard and do our exercises and politicize each other. It was strange because that's Wednesdays when we open up the PE to the classes to the masses. There was a lot of questions that was asked of us, especially like who was Don Pedro Aviso Campo, who was the Nationalist Party, because it seems to me that the Latino population at that time in Attica were very unpolitical. They had no politics whatsoever, and so I guess that's one of the reasons why we was able to organize them, because we started from the simple, what are you doing in prison and why are you here? That's how we started, and as they replied to that, we were able to give them more information as to the colonialization, of our people in the United States.
Absolutely. Hey, let me jump in here, Zen, because I know David Rivera and Omar Lopez probably gonna leave at 9. I know there's a few things they definitely want to talk about, and I think this is important. COINTELPRO infiltration that was going on. I want David Rivera to speak to that, and Omar Lopez, Elder, I want you to talk about what do you see as the impact of the young lords of generations that followed? Like, what was the overall impact? And I mean, we actually see that right here, all of us on here. But I want you to speak to that. But starting with David Rivera, COINTELPRO infiltration. How did that affect y'all as an organization, and what do we as a movement today have to be cognizant of? Why is this important?
There you go. Okay. Well, to be aware of these things, you have to be very, very careful. They can be COINTELPRO can use anybody. I mean, they used to infiltrate us. Yeah, hell, you'll be there's a guy next to you and he's screaming with you, and you know what? He's COINTELPRO, and he's just waiting for the right moment to do his move. They will go as far as to use your own family against you. They'll go to your parents and say, hey, if you help us, we can get him, out of this mess. We can help him not to go to jail if you do this. And the family thinking they're helping you, they're sinking you. And so, in other words, is that sometimes even the people you love and love you, thinking that they love you, are screwing you. And I say it this way so that you know how close they can get and how deep they can get into every single one of our lives. And if we're not careful, you take, for example, what happened to the young lords. You had people that just met Chacha a year or two ago, or the day of the passing of the torch. They took one picture with them. They met somebody that was close to them, and they used those pictures to say that they were the young lords under Chacha.
Yep.
Meantime, okay, all they're trying to do is trying to get some people to donate money and give grants, okay? And this is why it's so important for them to get this.
Right.
Okay, meantime, they're trying to hurt.
From the police, right? Those individuals that try to make it seem like they were the new era young lords under Cha-Cha and stuff. They got like $85,000 from the pigs.
well, actually, that's I can't say something that I'm not 100% sure of. I know that people were making money. I know that people that were saying that they were young lords and they were not. I say people that have known Cha-Cha for 50 and 60 years, just like I have.
Right.
Have actually, become a friend and a friend of the family to be able to manipulate.
Right.
Okay, the thing. So we have to be very careful because everybody that says they are young lords are not young lords if they cannot identify with the actual National Central Committee of the Young Lords in Chicago, okay, then no. The only other organization that has and is the YLO today is the New Era Young Lords.
Right.
Exactly, of which Sylvie Toro is the national chairman of. Cha-Cha will always be Chairman Cha-Cha.
Right.
Always. But we needed somebody that can right now actually take the front.
Absolutely.
Definitely. But yes, COINTELPRO can be very dangerous and very conniving. And we have to be very careful because a lot of the things that's going on right now has a lot to do with that. They pit you against each other. Conquered and divide is the way of Getting game.
If I may just add that the idea of COINTELPRO was actually initiated in Puerto Rico.
Right.
First, against the Puerto Rican independence movement.
Yes.
Before it was formalized by the FBI and then spread to other law enforcement agencies.
Right.
Okay,
Well,
that's the history of COINTELPRO. Now, I think it's important, if I just may say, I think that we need to embrace certain principles. We need to not allow anyone to come to any one of us to tell us, you know, such and such, boo, 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 and ba, ba, ba. You say, you know, somebody comes with that, you first thing you say, wait a minute, let me get such and such, and you say that to their face. See, right. And if you can't do that, you can't say it to anybody. Okay, right. Because those are the basic tactics of divide and conquer. Okay, right. It's to pit people against each other, pit organizations against one another. And we need to overcome the weaknesses within our community. You know, someone knows that I don't like you, so they're going to come to Panama to tell, yo, such and such, ba, ba, ba. Whether I like you or don't like you, or whether you like me or don't like me, it's not the issue. See, the issue is we can't allow the rumor mongering to exist amongst us.
Right, right.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't let Omar that last question, but what you just said, that's actually I'm so glad that you brought it up, because to me, I feel like a lot of times when we talk about COINTELPRO, we usually start with the party. Sometimes we'll take a little step back to the communist movement, like in the 50s. You know what I'm saying? But really, when you look at what they did to Puerto Rico, that's why I brought up Don Pedro is because like y'all had like 100,000 people with fouls against y'all. But it's a saying that what happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. What happens in Puerto Rico never happened. You know what I'm saying? Like the stuff that Puerto Rico in the 1940s, 30s, and 40s. To me, it was like they were setting the stage to become a lot more sophisticated by the time they got to the to the original Young Lords and the Black Panther Party, because they had already perfected it over there in Puerto Rico.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. If I can say real quick, I think a book all of us need to read is War Against All Puerto Ricans. And the author of that is Nelson Dennis, who's a really good friend of mine. And he has promised that if we read it and we want to discuss it, he will come on with us to discuss it with us, to have the author right then and there.
But add us, the book reading program for the Second Rainbow Coalition will be reading that. So
tell me when, and we'll get Nelson on there.
Okay, most definitely. And yeah, that's one of the ones that I think like really, I watched the documentary on Democracy Now! With him talking about that. Subituro sent it. That's when I started doing some real research on Puerto Rico and start realizing like this is a lot more sophisticated. I got to take a step back from the Black Panthers and go even further back to realize like how this is connected. You know what I mean? So I appreciate that. I know you're.
Summers, we got a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And Omar probably about to leave, so I wanted them to have their say what they wanted to say. But I know you wanted to speak about what is the impact that the Young Lords, you know, will have on have on future generations and generations to come. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that one of the important things that we have to keep in mind is exactly what kind of an impact the Lords had on the youth. I think before the Young Lords became political, most of us felt victims of the police brutality. We always felt that we were the recipients of violence. But I think Chacha in his work with the youth and the lumpen in the neighborhood, it changed the perception that we had of ourselves, and that is, we stopped feeling like victims. We were not victims. We became part of a conflict, and when we become part of a conflict, then we became equals to the enemy. As long as you don't feel equal to the enemy, you can become a victim all the time, and you're powerless. But what Chacha did with the youth was change the mentality from being a victim to being a participant in a conflict. So that's why we were able to confront the police with no fear, because before that, you confront the police, you go to jail for nothing. But with the change in the mentality, the youth, we became part of the problem. And so we became the opposite. The police defended the institutions that were oppressing us, and we became the group that was defending our community. I think that's important, because what that did is they gave the youth a reason to be, a reason to struggle, and it gave them also, we can say hope that they could change things. Today, I think the fact that we have the new era young lords, and they have, a group of men and women committed to continuing the struggle, it's a sign that, 55 years after we started, there is that kind of impact. They recognize it, and youth, several generations already have used the inspiration of the young lords as a springboard to better living conditions, to being more active, becoming lawyers, elected officials, teachers, you name it. But they see the inspiration in the young lords, and they use that as a springboard. And I think that New Era Young Lords, it's a very good example of how we have influenced the youth of today, and how they're taking over. We can't talk about tactics, because tactics change all the time, but we can talk about the influence that we had on the youth, and hopefully, we're going to see a better world as a result.
All power to the people. All power to the people. I know
all power to the people.
Johanna's going to be leaving as well with David Rivera and Omar Lopez. So I want to end.
If I may say one thing, please, before anybody leaves.
But we're not
all free Leonard Peltier. Leonard
the
Peltier for the American Indian movement. We need to free him.
Right on, man.
Right on.
Leonard Peltier. That's right. Thank you.
Elders and comrades want to stay on and talk to. I know Cleo says she's going to be staying on. Che's going to be staying on to answer some questions. But I want to end this with this part of the official part of this panel discussion with Johanna. We started off with our book. This is why we even came and start to speak about this panel discussion today. I would like her to end on the note to sum up, everything for this panel discussion.
Ooh, that's hard. I mean, I think Omar touched on a really important issue, which is that we are victims to the extent that we allow oppression to occur without challenging it. But our people have come too far. And there are too many examples of courageous struggle for us to even consider ourselves as that. The struggle for human liberation is also a struggle of profound individual transformation. At every turn, you have to figure out what you must do psychologically, in terms of political education, in terms of discipline, to be part of the organization that's a liberatory one. I know that was a struggle. That's a struggle in all organizations. How much am I giving of myself? Am I giving my better self? Am I giving my ethical self to this process? And I'm glad to see that you guys have these rules of conduct. That was very important to these organizations, to the Black Panthers and the Young Lords. How are we going to treat each other within the organization as a model of how we want to transform the world? I've got nothing else to say other than that there's a lot of work to do in this world. I've seen images of Black Americans organizing in Chicago against the migrants and the refugees that are coming in. This is what they want us to do. They want us to be at each other's throats. They want to pit us against each other because we are weaker that way, and they get to laugh all the way to the bank. So there is work to do more than ever around this this idea of a rainbow coalition, on the legacies that the Young Patriots, the Black Panthers, the Young Lords, but also the Indian movement, the National Indian Movement, the Iwakun. It wasn't only Black, brown, and white. It was yellow, it was red. And really what this tells us is that the Young Lords and the Black Panthers were ahead of their time. They were projecting, they were organizing in the 1960s on the basis that we should all be organizing on today, because today the city has finally reached that level of multiracial, it's a multiracial city, like they envisioned it then. It was just beginning to be a multi-ethnic city, right? But today our cities are completely multiracial, and this history of the Rainbow Coalition couldn't be more urgent. So thank you for carrying on this work, and thank you for engaging in political education, and reading the work that I spent a lot of time and a lot of my heart working on. It was always a pleasure. It was a pleasure and an honor to be allowed to write this incredible history. So thank you.
Absolutely.
All
Pleasure
power
having
to the
you.
people.
And all the elders that came on. I know, just real quick, for David Rivera and Omar Lopez, one of y'all comrades, Lissa Ray, she had a question for y'all, if y'all can let her get that in. But our pleasure having you on, Johanna. We appreciate that book. I'm probably gonna read that book again, just because I thought it was a lot of the stuff that I need to internalize even more so than just going through in a book study program with other comrades. I might just have to sit back and just internalize different times. So we appreciate you coming on. Anytime you want to come on with the Second Rainbow Coalition, any level, we definitely welcome you here. You know what I mean? So all power to the people.
All power to the people. Thank you.
All power to the people.
Power to the people.
All power.
All power.
You had a question for David Rivera and Omar Lopez before they leave?
Yeah, if they have time, I can stay for one more. All right. So then, David, my question to you was that what are your feelings continuing the work? Because I see you out there all the time with E-Man now. So like you're still active, you're still doing the stuff, but you're obviously in a completely different space out there in Florida. So what are your feelings from then until now? What's the difference? What's changed? What's going on?
Still at the battle, honey. It's the same battle, it's the same war, a lot different. It's here in Florida. It's like ground zero when it comes to racism, and the thing with the woke thing. Well, everything that's going on with the census down here. The reason I'm still at it mostly it's because about 6 years ago when Chacha came to me and said, we got to do this. And he stepped down from the chair and made me acting chairman because he wanted to go back to school to finish his PhD. But then he told me about a group of kids that they were trying to use our name, and that's how it came about where I met Subi, and we decided that the New Era Young Lords we were going to pass the torch to the New Era Young Lords. Today, here in Florida, honey, it's just that it's not done. Florida is very complicated right now, and the group here, it needs our backing. It needs the backing of the whole organization, actually, of what's going on here in Florida. But as far for myself, it's because I haven't stopped because I'm not dead yet.
All power.
All
Okay.
power.
That's why I like you.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And David Rivera,
Yeah.
I'm in Florida too, and I understand. I understand what you're saying. Everything with Ron DeSantis that's happening in here, and him trying to whitewash history in order to embolden white supremacist thought and behavior. It's fucking disgusting. So I 100% understand.
Absolutely. And then, Comrade Elder Omar, my question for you was, okay, so your role was Minister of Information. So what did your role entail and why was it important?
Well, as Minister of Information, my responsibility was really the propaganda, beginning with the newspaper, leaflets, slogans, putting the paper out and making sure that it was distributed and used as a tool for organizing, calling press conferences, doing press releases. So that was my primary role as Minister of Information. But we all had more than that. We all were involved in just the organizing and marching and doing other things. But I think that in itself gave all of us in the Central Committee and then also the cadres, gave us a experience that we have been able to use afterwards. I think that, David mentioned it. He's going to be active until as long as he's alive. And I think that the young lords that are still around, we feel the same way. We learned a lot, and it's something that we need to apply today. Right now, for example, we can point to things that happen with the Central Committee. For example, our Minister of Health, he went on to become a medical doctor, and he went to New Mexico and established poor people's health clinics, and he never became rich because he was really dedicated to the people. He was, and he says that himself, he was a true communist. He was a good communist. Our Minister of Education, Tony Baez, he also then went back to school after the Young Lords. He became an educator, got a master's, got a PhD, and right now he is an authority on bilingual education, not just nationally, internationally. But that came out of his work with the Young Lords in developing all the study units for the cadres. We had members, that were under David as a field marshal that became good organizers. We had one that was one of the best business agents with Local 150 of the operating engineers, which is a big union, labor union. And, all of his organizing came from his years in the Young Lords. So, we carry all of this, whatever responsibility we had then, we're still applying all of that experience. And I think that Johanna mentioned, for example, the situation right now here in Chicago with the immigrants that are coming from South America, and how it's creating friction between the Latino immigrants and the African American community. And so one of the things that I'm personally doing is I'm approaching also now the chairman of the New Era Young Lords here so that we can take a position on that. We cannot afford to allow the conflict between these two communities to be the narrative. I think that we need to, again, what we did also in the 60s is identify the enemy. And the enemy is not each other. You know, the enemies are the institutions that are not responding to this type of emergencies. And here's an example. And this is something that Brother Juan Gonzalez mentioned in a radio program. When the Ukrainian refugees after the war, when the war started in Ukraine, came to Chicago, we got 30,000 refugees from Ukraine, 30,000. We got 20,000 Venezuelans. So when the Ukrainians came, you never saw them sleeping in the police stations like you see the Venezuelans. You never saw them having to be sheltered in tent cities, because the federal government does have an infrastructure to be able to process them immediately and provide them with a work permit and assistance. And so the Chicago never saw the Ukrainian refugees. They blended right into the community with no problem. And that was 30,000 of them. Now we get 20,000 Venezuelans, and it's a big deal. It's a big crisis because they're not applying the same principles, the same infrastructure to process them. So we cannot, we need to tell other people that are not seeing that problem and identifying the problem that the enemy is not the Venezuelans, you know, and it's not a conflict with the African American community. It is with the institutions that are creating this thing. And that's very racist. You see it as it's racism, institutional racism, when you can help 30,000 people, you know, be integrated into the community with no problem at all. You don't see them. You never saw them, but you see the Venezuelans, you know, struggling. So I think that that's one of the immediate work that we have right now here in Chicago. And I am hoping the New Era Young Lords are going to be pretty active on something like this, you know, to be able to solve that and to educate people using this conflict.
Exactly.
I just want to say that I think that no African American should ever be coming out in an opposition to immigrants being brought into this country to work. And that our goal is, and what we should be doing is trying to explain to them how the system works against them and as well as works against us. So
yeah, that's right. That's right.
As working people, yeah.
All power.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you. Those are great answers. Jen, you want to take back over? You're muted.
You're muted, Sister Senda.
Forgot about that. Gotta love those moments. And thank you, everyone. Agreed. Those were beautiful answers. Very insightful. And I see a couple of our members of the reading group have their hands up with some questions. Go ahead, Sister Gabby, and then after you, Sister Santi.
Right. So one of the main questions that I wanted to ask, and I'm sure we're curious, is where is Gloria Fontanez? I'm really curious to where exactly she is or what happened to her after the whole thing with the YLP.
I can answer that. Sister Gloria, by the way, who was at one time one of my best friends in the entire world.
Really?
She and I shared the co-chairmanship of ATRUM, the Health Revolutionary Unity Movement, as most people know. I don't know if you are aware that COINTELPRO, she was a victim of COINTELPRO and was actually after that carried out many of the role of COINTELPRO in the Young Lords Organization and in the Puerto Rican Revolutionary Workers Organization. And if you are not aware of that, you should either speak to somebody, or I don't know if this history has been written, but I can tell you what it is. She married a highly placed representative of
the RU.
I'm sorry?
Of the
From
RU,
the
right?
Revolutionary Union, who was also an FBI agent.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, let's be real. I understand she now has dementia and is still living in the Bronx. But she carried out many of the horrible things that happened to our comrades in the Puerto Rican Revolutionary Workers Organization, and carried out the continued smashing of the Young Lords Organization and the Puerto Rican Revolutionary Workers Organization. And I'm telling you that, and it's very sad for me to say that, but that's in fact what happened. Go ahead, Panama. I know you know the answer.
Well, it's important to note that in that process, she organized the beatings of young lords by other young lords. She organized the kidnapping and torture of Richie Perez and Diana Perez Caballero.
She did.
She was the one responsible. How she was used or how much of that was her, I don't know. Okay, I personally don't want nothing to do with that woman. In fact, let me tell you, I ran into her when Lolita Lebron passed away. There was an event held to honor Lolita Lebron, and I was in charge of security, and she showed up, and I threw her out.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Didn't she also didn't she order, because there were some Young Lord members who disagreed with the Young Lords' abandonment of the survival programs and then trying to go to Puerto Rico. She kept some of them as hostages, right? Did she do that? Did she keep some of them as hostages and held them as hostages?
Well, that I don't know about. I know that she came from New York, went to Puerto Rico, and started a whole division against people in the Young Lords who realized that having moved to Puerto Rico was a mistake.
It was.
That the politics of the Young Lords were based on our experience in the urban centers in the United States. And the reality in Puerto Rico is very different. And she went to Puerto Rico and did what she did, and then there was a mass exodus of the people that from the Young Lords that came to Puerto Rico, and she did a lot of bad things.
She did. She did. Another thing, would y'all say that Gloria Fontanez, would y'all say that she was a revisionist?
I think she was part to be a cop.
Yeah,
That's what I think.
when you have the ideology of the police, the ideology of the government, what does it matter whether you're a revisionist or not? You are a police agent. You are representing the government.
Exactly.
She was an infiltrator. That's what she
You are
was.
an infiltrator. That's right.
She was a counter-revolutionary. That's what she was.
Sad to say. Sad to say, but that's what it is. That's real.
Indeed. Another thing about the move to Puerto Rico. Why did the YLP didn't just make a chapter or tried making a chapter in Puerto Rico? Why did they just try and transition their whole party over there and not just try and make a chapter?
Well, because the Young Lords were created out of the experience of the Puerto Rican community in the United States. Colonialism. okay? Let me put it this way. Puerto Rico has undergone the most sophisticated colonialism in the history of humanity. We tend to think about colonialism as one country invading another, putting a gun to someone's head and making do what you want them to do. They have refined that into a fine science where today they control people's minds in Puerto Rico. You know, when we had the Hurricane Maria, one of the things that to me, coming from New York, was very impressive, how many of the older Puerto Ricans on the island were so disappointed because the United States didn't come to save us, because we couldn't take care of ourselves. We need the United States to save us because we depend on them. And then Trump came and threw paper towels, and people played. That's what they did.
That's it. That's what happened.
That's what they did. And exactly as you were saying, Comrade Panama, exactly as you were saying, imperialism doesn't just come in the form of coming to your country with guns. It comes in the form of making your country economically, socially, and politically dependent on another through financial aid and making them economically indebted to them through the creation of compradors like Ras Baraka and so on and so forth.
Sure. Yeah. We have a whole class of people in Puerto Rico whose job is to keep us dependent. Okay, they promote that thinking amongst people. You know, I had a very interesting experience. I went to an activity at the University of Puerto Rico, and it was Ramon Emeterio Betances' birthday, and they have a bust of Ramon Emeterio Betances, okay, in the University of Puerto Rico, the Rio Piedra campus. And we were there, and there was some reporters, and one of the reporters asked one of the university students, says, "Do you know who Ramon Emeterio Betances is?" And he said, "No, who's that guy?" And then they asked him, "You know who George Washington is?" "Of course." And you know what that said is that what they call education is in fact indoctrination.
Yep.
Okay,
It's white supremacy.
That's what's taking place, and it's taking place institutionally in Puerto Rico.
100% correct. Right on.
Go ahead, Comrade Shanti, and then after you, Comrade Che.
All right. First of all, I'd like to give credit to Johanna for giving my city, Chicago, credit for all of this, because if it wasn't for Chicago, the Young Boys would not be possible. We have a lot of revolutionary history here. George Jackson came from here. You know, the most principled chapter of the Black Panther Party came from here, made possible by the only chairman, Fred Hampton. Right. Yes, indeed. You know, it's a lot of things that people do owe to us, because if it wasn't for us, you know, they would not have a Labor Day. If it wasn't for us, they would not have all of this revolutionary history and influence if it wasn't for the Rainbow Code starting here, not by Jesse Jackson, by Fred.
That's right.
By those people, because they were the ones to start it first. They were the ones to plant those seeds, and then it became a whole revisionist, assimilationist plight that I do not claim. I do not claim that. I do not claim Rainbow Push. I do not like Rainbow Push. I do not claim that. I claim the original coalition made possible by Fred, by Hy Thurman, by Cha-Cha, by these people that had a point revolution and principle that no one had ever seen before, let alone in Chicago, because it's still very much the most segregated city out of everyone else.
Not Memphis, brother. But I just want to say one thing about your feelings, and I understand why you're feeling the way that you feel. But I do want to say that if there is revolution and if there is oppression, it doesn't matter where the struggles against that oppression begin.
Right.
And it doesn't matter where they end. And you should take that as a part of starting to have a broader view of revolution.
Right.
Revolution could take place in Guam.
In Guam.
Or it could begin in Guam. And as long as it migrates over here to the United States, that's why there would not be a revolutionary movement in this country if there was not the original stealing of the land from the Native Americans.
Right.
There would not be a struggle against racism and white supremacy in this country had it not been for slavery. So you can begin there, or you can begin in Chicago.
Right.
But there would not be a Young Lords had it not been a SNCC. Do you understand what I'm saying? So just your viewpoint, and I understand where you're coming from, because that is true. And there would not be a Black Panther Party if it wasn't for Oakland, California. But that's not even true, because there would not be a Black Panther Party if it were not from Louisiana and Alabama, where the first Black Panthers were established, and in North Carolina, where the first Black Panthers came from. So I just want you to understand that if there is oppression, somewhere there's going to be a struggle, a fight against it. And there's always going to be that fight. And we're always going to be, doesn't matter where it came from. The question is, where are we going to end it? And how we're going to end it all over the world. So
that's right.
All power. That's all power. And, it's very important that we have all those other places be part of the story, because, you see colonialism that happened to Borican and Hawaii and Africa and other places where colonization and imperialism is still taking place. Palestine, with what's going on in Palestine right now, the complete ambush against the puppet state on Palestinian land, is very, very important that we keep that in mind here. Especially with what I wanted to ask, because building on Gloria and what happened with her and the things that she had adopted, being a whole revisionist dictator around the Young Lords Party. Today you see a lot of collectives and so-called revolutionary organizations that do not have principle, that do not have a scientific, dialectical, materialist understanding of our oppression, no kind of the right kind of political education that would meet people where they're at and make them principled and scientific. And, there's no kind of system of conduct where, there's no kind of the right kind of accountability being taken when lateral harm and lateral violence, like, let's say sexual violence or misogyny, and ableism, etc., goes on within the organization or is a part of the collective's structure. And I really wanted to ask this: how does a lot of so-called revolutionary collectives today fall very, very short in regards to principle, in regards to political education, in regards to boots on the ground? Because a lot of them, especially here in Chicago, don't do that. It's here in Chicago is very, very run by the nonprofit complex. So I wanted to ask that question: how do you feel about these collectives not having that right foundation of discipline and principle and education and boots on the ground work, especially the fact that there's no red book involved, that they're not using that as a foundation, to build off on and to be able to meet the people where they're at materially and psychologically, and then making them more educated and become disciplined. How do you feel about that?
Brother Omar is here. I have an answer, but I want to wait for some of the other comrades to answer this question. Brother Omar, still.
Yeah, especially because I'm here in Chicago also, and I see that. I see what is being said. The not-for-profit agencies are dominating right now the whole political arena, and they are the social services. They're not about educating the people that they are helping. So what they do is they are creating what I was telling before. Then people are being recipients of help, assistance, instead of understanding that is a responsibility that the government has towards them. Social service agencies are perhaps necessary for a lot of families, but they have to be held accountable also. Except the problem here is that social service agencies are not, they don't have a political ideology. There's not something that they can share with the recipients of their services. And I think this is where other organizations, the collectives, have to come in. I mean, they have to really begin to really push and question and hold accountable, even those very social service agencies. What are they doing? I think that what we did in the 60s, again, the base of the Young Lords, basically self-defense and self-determination. And the self-determination meant that we needed to create our own institutions in our communities. That's what it was. And that's why we also got a lot of repression from the government, because we were saying, we can take care of our people, and when we take care of them, we are educating them as to, what the government's relationship is to them. Right now, those collectives that are around, they need to really step up and seize the time, as Panther used to say, because what we are going through right now in Chicago is ideal for organizing. It's ideal for developing a class consciousness in people. This is ideal right now. We need the organizers with an ideology to go out and start working. I don't see them, unfortunately, and maybe they're out there working, but I am not aware of them. I would love to be aware of them so that I could somehow contribute, to their work. But definitely, Chicago is ideal right at this point for political groups to come up and to begin to really develop a good class consciousness in all of the people that are going through problems right now in the city. But definitely, we have to define the groups that are out there, and people think that social service agencies are the answer, and they're not. They're not the answer. They are enabling the government not to be accountable, by putting a little band-aid on people. We really need to point that out to the people that are getting that kind of assistance. That it's not charity that they're getting. It is something the government owes them. It is their responsibility. So I hope that we're going to have the National Democratic Convention in Chicago next year. I think that some of us are beginning to say, okay, what are the things that we need to do to organize and to make sure that they don't come here to Chicago and then go away with a platform that doesn't deal with the whole issue of immigration. It doesn't deal with the whole issue of all these hawks, that all they want to do is go to war. So we need to organize right now in Chicago so that the rest of the nation also has the time and the opportunity to also organize, and we can converge in Chicago next year. And I think this is, again, this is the right, it's ripe. Chicago is ripe for organizing. And I hope that we take advantage of that and we change, we change what you just mentioned, that domination of the social service type of mentality. We have to change that. And I think that this is the right time to put.
I want to answer the question about collectives. The one thing that is important about a collective is that you must study together. You must you must discuss what's going on every day. So if you live in a collective, you must have study group in that collective. I don't care if it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't care when it happens. It's got to be study group in that collective that day. You have to discuss whatever problems that you're facing among each other. You have to have criticism and self-criticism, where a person becomes big enough to recognize their own mistakes and to say to the rest of their collective, I'm really sorry, I made a mistake today. Or let me share with you what kinds of things I might have done better today. That's what a collective does. And a collective struggles together, and you become tight and unified, and you become trusting of each other. And if there's somebody in the collective that's keeping up a lot of shit, then you know that person doesn't belong. That's a Gloria Fontanes type of person, okay? Now, the other thing is that consciousness. Free healthcare is a right. It's not just something that you're supposed to pay. You're not supposed to be paying for healthcare. No one.
Our livelihood.
Or livelihood. You don't have to pay for. You're not supposed to be paying for rent. You're not supposed to be paying for cable and telephones, because all that comes in the earth. That comes from the earth. Okay, right. That's not something that you pay for. Who owns it? Don't nobody own that. But the point is, you deserve to have at least housing, clothing, and shelter. Shelter, clothing, and food. All that should be free. And when people don't realize that's the whole basis for socialism. Okay, that a person should not have to pay for education. You shouldn't have to pay to get on the bus and go someplace that you know you gotta go. All right. Those are the things that we have to share with people to let them understand this is what we're fighting for. For you to have access to all these things that are rights. This is a right for you. The government is stealing from us for not giving us our rights.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Ethically speaking, if it is necessary for your survival, it is a fucking right, not a commodity.
Yes.
If I may share two brief experiences that my daughter had in Cuba. Very interesting. My daughter got bitten by an insect and her leg got infected. So they take her to the community clinic, right? Goes to the community clinic, they take care of her, and when she's leaving, she says, where do I pay? And everybody turns around and says, what? Pay for being taken care of? I mean, who pays for being taken care of? He said, excuse me, I come from New York. I go to the hospital, I gotta pay. I see a doctor, I gotta pay. The other experience she had, she went there for hip hop exchange. She was hanging out with young people, and she was leaving that weekend back to New York. So they tell her, listen, you should stay. Next weekend is going to be this big festival. And she says, I can't. I got to go back to work. I got to pay my student loans. And everybody said,
what?
But what's a student loan? Yes, a loan that I took from a bank in order to go for the university to get my degree. You pay to go to the university? Who pays to get educated? That's
right.
your right. You know, and there may be a lot of criticisms about Cuba, where Cuba is or is not today. I don't want to hear that. The point is that they have gone to the point where every individual in Cuba knows that healthcare, that education is a right. It's not a privilege. Yeah, it's very interesting to me and my personal family, my daughter.
Yeah.
Right
Their
on.
perspective on it is eye-opening, and the vast difference there between how they treat things that are actually human rights versus how they get commodified here and put behind a paywall of like, oh, you only have the right to this, i.e. the privilege, if you're fucking wealthy. And that's not okay. That's why so many people are dealing with being unhoused, with having healthcare issues that were completely preventable, the whole 9 yards. This system is inherently fucked, and it was built to be that way and to oppress the masses. And for what? So the wealthy can amass more wealth at our expense of our life, our livelihood, the whole 9 yards. You know, it's messed up.
It's disgusting. Huh?
Exactly.
It's abhorrent.
Comrade Shay, I'd seen a few moments ago you had physically popped your hand up, so I know you've got some input. And then Comrade Alyssa, I see you got your hand up too, so you go next. Go ahead, Comrade Shay.
Yeah, I would just talk about Dominican Republic, because Panama was talking about Puerto Rico, and the Dominican Republic is just as bad as Puerto Rico. You know, I mean, here, just a few minutes ago, the lights went out, you know, and I said, oh shit, man, you know, what the fuck am I gonna do now? Because, you know, I want to get back into the meeting. You know, I gotta wait because the lights go out. The water here they give you water, cold water for poor people, only cold water, and then they take that away from you for about a few hours, and you don't have no water to wash dishes or even to cook. So you're in trouble, you know. Then there goes your refrigerator, you know, things get defrost, you know, because there's no lights. It's really ridiculous, man. I ain't never been in a situation like this. And I gotta be here for a few months for various reasons I'm not gonna go into. But, you know, like I said earlier, not earlier, but a while back, when I get out of here, when I leave Dominican Republic, I'm not coming back to it. I'm not coming back to it, man. It's ridiculous. I mean, I prefer to go to Puerto Rico, man, you know, because at least over there it's a little bit more decent. You know, I mean, it's the same situation, but a little bit more decent. Here, they take the water away from you, man, and you don't have no water. They take the lights away, you don't have no lights. It's crazy. And then when you go to the store to buy something, you know, if you got 50 pesos, it's gone in a minute. You know, everything is extremely high. You know, so, you know, people who come here with money goes like that, quick. It goes quick. It's nothing, you know. So we talk about neo-colonialism right here in Dominican Republic.
That's right.
That should be downright criminal.
It's
that's downright criminal that they cut your power, cut your water, the whole 9 yards. So here, if there was something affecting your ability for water or electricity to be coming into your house, you would get fined by the city. How is it there? They're like, okay, the city's cutting your shit off for a little while. Deal with it.
They have no infrastructure.
None. Folks, I have to say good night. So it's been a pleasure sharing with all of you. I've learned a lot here tonight, and I appreciate it. Thank you, and power to the people. And free Palestine.
I love
All
you.
power to the people. Free Palestine.
Good night.
You're awesome, Panama. You're awesome.
Thank you for joining us, Panama.
Great man.
All
Yeah,
power.
all power to the people, comrade.
Comrade Panama is one of the most prolific organizers I've ever met in my life.
He seems like a really cool guy. He's awesome.
He's very cool.
Oh yeah. Comrade Alyssa, go ahead.
I just wanted to take the opportunity to plug into Comrade Omar was talking about the DNC march, is that the Poor People's Army will be marching on the RNC and the DNC next year. So we are working with them as a Second Rainbow Coalition, and I do believe that Deputy Chairman Paul is aware of like trying to organize, because the ending point is going to be Chicago, and we do have such a base down there that we're really hoping to make a big thing of it, a big event with all of us down there. And also I had another question, since Sister Cleo is still here. I just was gonna, is it okay if I still ask another?
Sure.
All right. Basically, probably, I was actually surprised it didn't come up yet, but what struggles did you face as a woman in organizing? What has changed, and what advice can you give to us?
That's another really fundamental question. And let me say this, that the struggle for women's equality is a constant struggle. And until we have a socialist revolution, we will not have resolved that question. So internally in the Black Panther Party and in the Young Lords Party, in the Young Lords organization, when I was there was always a struggle for equality for the sisters. Of course, you know that there was a tremendous struggle inside of the Young Lords where the sisters demanded that one of the points on revolutionary machismo be stricken from the platform of the organization, and that women be given respect and dignity as individual leaders and recognized for their contributions to the organization and to the struggle. And I want to speak about my role as a member of the Black Panther Party. One of the things about women in the Black Panther Party is that the women did everything that the men did in the Black Panther Party. In other words, in the Black Panther Party, you were expected to be in excellent condition. So many of the Panthers had karate training. I had a green belt in karate, as well as all of if the brothers was responsible for selling 100 newspapers a week at minimum, I sold my 100 and more. Whatever the brothers did, organizing, speaking, going to meetings, all of that, plus women also took care pretty much of the apartments that we lived in. We watched the children. I was Tupac. My claim to fame was that I was Tupac Shakur's babysitter, one of his babysitters, because Afeni Shakur was my comrade in the Black Panther Party. We cooked. We made sure that the brothers were organized. Mostly we had sisters in both the Young Lords and the Black Panther Party with the officer of the day. The officer of the day is the person that's in the office that gives you your assignment for what you need to do today. So because every individual had an assignment of things that they were supposed to do, and meeting they were supposed to go to. If there's a struggle over here, you need to be there. 25 people need to go over here. And the officer of the day organized all of that and gave out the assignments. And we were always women that did that. The sisters were the ones that wrote the flyers and that reproduced the flyers. And then we took them out after we wrote them and reproduced them. Then we took them out and gave them out to the community and made sure the community was well educated about everything. So, and still, with all of that, there was a struggle inside the organization for women's equality. So again, my view is that we will never gain absolute equality until there is absolute equality in our society. And that's what we're fighting for. We're fighting for justice and equality. and an end to injustice, and an end to white supremacy, and an end to capitalism and imperialism. That's what we're fighting for. And until we get that, we're still going to have to struggle, sisters. I'm sorry to say, but we have to maintain our consciousness. We have to become stronger and better leaders. We have to fight harder. We have to prove ourselves. We have to organize better. We have to keep the organization tight and strong. We have to fight the tendency for women to fight each other, to be fighting each other, and to give each other support. All of those things are necessary in order to build a strong and good organization that's going to move forward, that's going to move us forward, that's going to take us to where we need to go. So I'm done with that. I'm off my soapbox now.
Wow, power, Sister Cleo.
Preach.
Right. Words of wisdom right there. Because
beautiful.
We cannot separate any of these forms of oppression from capitalism when they are the very things that uphold capitalism.
Right.
Thank you, Theo, for saying that, because I swear to God, I hate when people want to separate these things as they are separate individual phenomenons that have a somehow a connection to each other. No, it all comes under capitalism. These are the secondary contradictions of capitalism that we're facing, that we're struggling against. You know, you cannot separate the patriarchy from capitalism because it's all there. There's no individual anything. So that aspect we have to address, because a lot of these people, you know, today, you know, they don't have that class consciousness where they will be able to confront patriarchy and racism and sexism and homophobia and transphobia and xenophobia from a class analysis, because either they are applying their class consciousness wrong or they have none at all. And that is what we have to fix, that class analysis that we need in order to confront these problems as to what they actually are. Secondary contradictions and byproducts to the capitalist imperialist system that we're all under. It's all interconnected anyway. We cannot separate any part of it from capitalism because it's all there. So that is what we have to confront. Absolutely.
Yep. So intersectionality is very important to understand, as well as the massive, massive differences between intersectionality versus identity politics.
Very important.
And the sisters study harder too.
Very harder.
Oh,
study
yeah.
harder.
Oh,
Read
yeah.
more.
100%.
Read more.
And self-criticize.
Criticism.
Comrade David, I see you've got your hand up. Go ahead, Elder.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to everybody for having me here today. It was very interesting. Also, just want to say about the Rainbow Coalition. Rainbow Coalition is going to be one of the most important organizations in our movement right now, because that's going to show our solidarity. That's going to show how together we are. The bigger it gets, the stronger we get. The Rainbow Coalition said it back then, and this is what they were trying to avoid. They didn't avoid it. Okay, let's make it grow, because in reality, it's the Rainbow Coalition that's going to make it better for us. So, peace out, comrades, and thank you, and God bless. Omar, good to see you again. Jorge, nice meeting you.
All power to the people.
All power to the people, always.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight and for sharing your wisdom, David.
Workers for
power.
Okay, how do you connect to this?
Comrade Gabby, I see you got your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to add to what Comrade Shanti was saying, and to add and to ask Comrade Cleo something as well, because 100% we cannot be class reductionists. We cannot just merely view this as an economic struggle. This is a social, political, and cultural struggle as well. You cannot have economic liberation without also having social, political, cultural liberation as well. We have to combat all of the contradictions of capitalism, not just the primary, not just the secondary, all of it. Not some of them, not most of them, all of them. Otherwise, the secondary will lead back to the reformation of the primary. That's what's going to happen. They all derive from it. They're all interconnected and have their essence within one another. And what I wanted to ask was there ever a moment in the Young Lords where there were issues with class reductionism?
Comrade, I'm not sure what the definition of class reductionism is. So I'm not sure how to answer it. Maybe you could define it for me. But
sure.
But I do want to say one thing about the struggle for culture. I think that the struggle has to be to respect the basic cultures of the different peoples that make up the working class everywhere and internationally. And we have to respect and begin to love those cultures. We also have to try to bring about a revolutionary culture in our
society.
Right.
A new culture.
Yes, a culture of revolution where everybody is like, I'm down with the revolution. You know, we almost gained that during the 60s and 70s, where so many people wanted to be Panthers. Everybody said they was a Panther. So many people wanted to be a young lord. People just wanted to be that. So many people wanted to be in the Rainbow Coalition. You know, and that's what I'm hoping that we'll be able to grow. But you're not going to be able to do it over the internet or Instagram. I just had my Instagram hacked, by the way, so don't listen to anything that
Oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you, Cleo. I had my Facebook account hacked a couple months ago, so I understand the frustration.
Yeah. Okay. So reductionism, cultural reductionism. What did you say? What does that mean?
I said class reductionism. Basically, class reductionism is the notion that we only need to change the economic system and that's it. Nothing else needs to change. Nothing else needs to be worked on. Just the economic base. Nothing socially or culturally or politically. Just the economic base. That's what cultural reductionism is. Cultural reductionism. Disregard class reductionists disregard things like racism, misogyny, ableism, queerphobia, fatphobia, and they reject seeing things from a scientific, dialectical, and Marxist analysis of how everything is interconnected. Was there ever a point in the Young Lords where there was class reductionism, where some Young Lord members didn't acknowledge that, for instance, homophobia or misogyny or ableism were genuine things that need to be combated?
Yes, all the time, every day, every minute, because there were new people coming in. So again, the struggle is to continue talking and educating every minute. You never stop. If you hear something that somebody says and you know it's not right, you make sure to say it, comrade. You say it in a comradely way. That viewpoint is not correct. This is the broader and more correct viewpoint. This is what we're fighting for. So that reductionism is not able to continue to rear its ugly head and rush through the organization. You stop it where you see it and you hear it, and you continue to do that on an everyday basis all the time. You know, on an every moment basis. And remember that there are always new people that are not educated that come into your organization. So it's our responsibility to be always educating. And sometimes that means teaching comrades how to read. Sometimes that means making them disabuse old concepts that they used to have, that they used to believe were true. But that is our responsibility to do that and to do it to the community, in the community as well. Not just to members in the organization, but to make sure that we get that information out to our people and to our organization.
Right on. Right on. What you were saying just now actually reminded me of a quote that Mao said. Is it okay if I read it?
Sure, go ahead.
The quote is, but our aim in exposing errors and criticizing shortcomings like that of a doctor curing a sickness is solely to save the patient and not to doctor him to death. A person with appendicitis is saved when the surgeon removes his appendix. So long as a person who has made mistakes does not hide his sickness or fear of treatment or persist in his mistakes until he's beyond cure, so long as he honestly and sincerely wishes to be cured and to mend his ways, we should welcome him and cure his sickness so that he can become a good comrade. We can never succeed if we just let ourselves go and lash out at him. In treating an ideological or political melody, one must never be rough and rash, but must adopt the approach of curing the sickness to save the patient, which is the only correct and effective method. Love this quote.
All powered. I like that.
All power
quote.
to the people.
It's a good one.
I love that.
Chairman
I
Mao
love
had
that.
some good stuff to say.
Oh, trust me, Comrade Mao always has some good stuff to say. But exactly there, because once again, it's not just about meeting the people materially, but psychologically as well. Because not everyone is going to be at the same psychological level. Some people may be closer to becoming some people may be closer to becoming class conscious than others. It just depends on where they're at. The whole point is not to demonize them and undermine them and make them feel bad for where they're at. The whole point is to meet them where they're at and elevate them until they're as knowledgeable or even more knowledgeable than you. And you don't do that. You don't do that by lecturing them. You don't do that by engaging in commandist bullshit. You do that by struggling alongside them and providing for their needs and showing them why they should listen to you, why they should give a fuck about what you're saying, why they should follow you. If the masses are going to follow the vanguard party, they need to acknowledge and know that they are the vanguard. It is for them. Socialism is for the people. If they don't understand that, then they're never going to fight for class struggle and class separation. So yeah.
Indeed.
All
Comrade
power.
Sharpton, see you've got your hand up too. Go ahead, and then I'll pass things back off over to my co-chair, Comrade Kwame.
All right. To build off on, on that, as the great Thomas Sankara said himself of Burkina Faso, as revolutionaries, we don't have the right to say we are tired of explaining. We must not stop explaining. We know that when the people understand, they cannot help but follow us. And I think that's very, very crucial to really have that, because so many of us, do not want to explain things to certain people and not plant those seeds, because we don't think that if we do explain, then we are planting the seeds for those people's eventual revolutionary breakthrough. But we don't think that, especially with us Black people, we, a lot of baggage with us. And so we think that, we don't have to, keep explaining to certain facets of our community about certain things that are killing us, that are affecting us as a people, as a community, and it's affecting our destiny. And especially with the women of the Young Lords and the women of the Black Panther Party, the women that were really running the whole thing. Especially with Black women, they, we feel that, we are just so disrespected and so disregarded, no one is going to listen to us. No one is going to humanize us. No one is going to be able to, liberate us. We tend to close ourselves off, from other struggles because of that feeling that there's no way out, and these people will never get through. How do you feel, for Cleo? How do you feel about that tendency to isolate from planting those revolutionary seeds, not only with amongst Black women, but also amongst Black men, amongst Black trans people, amongst Black queer people, disabled people, and other oppressed peoples in the struggle, because a lot of people today tend to kind of isolate, their struggle from others. Like, we don't have to, be in solidarity with others. They don't get us. They profit off our culture and they commodify us to death. And, we're never going to get through to them. They'll never, ever understand us. And, how important is it to break from that and to really, truly understand what is going on, so we don't end up in the same predicaments by not planting those seeds regardless.
What a great question again. Now, this is the deal, comrades. One of the things that I hope that we're doing by being here is to help you not make the same mistakes that we made. So that's why we talk so much stuff, so that you can hear what the errors were back then, and so that you don't have to make those mistakes. You're going to make your own mistakes that you're going to share with the next group of comrades that come along. But what you're talking about is mutual support of comrades, that women have to step up and support each other and support people, the LGBT community, and support the people everybody who's being oppressed and exploited. Is that we have a responsibility. How can you change society if you're not changing the way you see other people and the way the rest of us see other people? You can't change the world. You can't make revolution. You can't complete the struggle against capitalism and imperialism without completing the struggle against what capitalism and imperialism does to us as human beings. And it does horrible things to many of us, but in different ways. So we have to, every possible way that capitalism attacks us, we have to fight back. And those of us who recognize it have to fight back for those who have not yet recognized it. And right, they will begin to understand and see that we're fighting for them too, every day. This is not something that you just have to do sometimes. You have to do this every day, all day long. And the brothers that recognize and understand this have to support the sisters. And the sisters need to support the other people who are living under the yoke of oppression. So it really is a struggle for everyone that's living under the yoke of oppression, and we will all unite and fight this thing together. And I promise you,
this is a good segue, because my next question is following up on that. Actually, I love, one thing I love about the Second Rainbow Coalition, being an advisor, is being able to build relationships with all these comrades. Like, a lot of these comrades on here, like, I know a lot of people on here from being on these book reading programs, develop relationship with these comrades. And sometimes we struggle against each other about some of these contradictions. So recently I had a struggle with a comrade. I told the comrade I was going to bring it up. He was like, yeah, definitely. I want to hear what the elders got to say and what the other comrades. So we was talking about machismo. This comrade said something about my masculinity is determined by my love for the people. And I felt that was machismo. and I explained to him why. And I sent him like a couple things from the Young Lords, Denise Oliver. And I told him, I was like, just read this, comrade. I think this is like something that you need to look at, because I don't think the love for machismo, your masculinity is determined by your love for the people. So what is your femininity, comrade? Is it the disdain for the people? Like, what are you talking about? And are you saying even the enemy lacks any type of masculinity? And what is masculinity? But like nothing but testosterone and estrogen. It has no social context of how you're trying to give it value, comrade. But I wanted to ask you, Elder, and I particularly was going to ask you and Johanna. She's not here, but I also want to ask some of the other comrades here, like Alyssa, Rafa. I know. I see Professor Chuck is on here. I want to get y'all intake on that statement. My masculinity is determined by my love for the people. I felt that was machismo. Now I start with you, Comrade Cleo. I know I see you eating those, so if you want me to go to somebody else.
No, I'm eating grapes.
Oh, okay. Because I'm over here eating myself.
No, I love grapes.
Who defines what masculinity is or is not? Our history tells us that all of the things, all the definitions about society and how society functions are based in the development of the capitalist system through the development of slavery in this country, and a tax on the Native Americans. Those two things are the basis for your understanding of what masculinity or femininity is or is not. And so what? So the oppression of women, he's correct, is based on the capitalist class. The capitalist class, how can their whole thing was about property. The whole oppression of women was about women couldn't own property. So here we go back again to capitalism. And here we go back again to ownership. So we're always going back to these very specific things that have to do with the distribution of wealth, distribution of the resources of society. So that's exactly where it is. Now, I'm not going to go any further in terms of that discussion, but I would like to discuss this in more specific terms, comrades, but I think that we need a whole PE class.
Right. Right.
We need a whole thing to dissect that.
Yeah. And I like that's one thing I feel that's gonna come from this book reading program is that we're gonna become more systematic. Like this year, we focused on more so the history. We read up about the Black Panther Party history. We read about the now the Young Lords. We read about the American Indian Movement history, the Young Patriots Organization's history. We're about to read about a little bit about the Brown Berets. I know the Brown Berets hasn't had a lot of documentation, but we're going to do our best to really peel back the layer of the Brown Berets history. And then we're going to read the Guitar Army, talking about the White Panther Party history. But some of the things that we're going to go into next year is going to deal with ideals of the organizations. We plan on reading, well, we haven't discussed this, but these are some of the things I was going to put on the table and see if other comrades agree. But like the Wretched of the Earth, I feel like the Wretched of the Earth was a powerful piece within the Black Panther Party in particular, and that a lot of the revolutionaries at that time really come to understand colonialism, neo-colonialism, and how that relates to us over here. But I also feel like Mal was a great influence to the revolutionary movements of that time that also influences us today. And I think Mal was like very easily digestible. Like some people, Marx and Lenin is a little bit more complex, but Mal, him organizing peasants that some of them were illiterate before they became conscious. Like he had a very down to earth approach to explaining stuff to the people that I think like the lumpen proletariat, the people coming straight out of prison or in the streets can even understand. You know what I'm saying? So I love Mao Zedong, but going into next year, we're going to deal with a lot more of ideals of these movements. So definitely with all the comrades, the elders, whatever. And I encourage a lot more that like this is a lot of people that came on today.
I'm
we
really
want
happy.
a lot of the book reading. Like when we do these book readings, we want y'all to come on this too. You feel me? Because this will help us to really develop our movement. So yeah.
Comrade Kwame?
Yes.
Oh no, I just wanted to add and say I highly recommend you also consider, because in my personal opinion, Mao and Engels are two of the are two of the revolutionaries that are the most digestible in general, both Mao and Engels. So yeah, Engels is really digestible as well. I just wanted to add that too. You're muted.
Yeah, I would agree. I think some of the books like Socialism, Utopia versus Scientific Socialism, I thought that was very down to earth, very easily digestible. I love
The origins
the origin.
Origin of the family, private property in the state.
Wow.
Yes, very essential, very important.
Important things to read.
Most like that book right there helped me understand like how patriarchy came about. Like I understand like matriarchy and patriarchy is not the same thing. A lot of people might, but well, if you saying we came from matriarchy, then it was like the women was oppressing men. I was like, nah, you gotta understand the context of all that stuff. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But that and understanding how the state came about, having private property, how patriarchy, all of those different things help us assess the nature of the state. And I think that's something that our generation has to come to terms to understand and internalize the nature of the state. Some of these institutions, like the police, is just not no other job. This has a particular role of the state that forms a repressive arm of the state that maintains the system. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not the same role as working at Walmart. That's not the same role as working at a grocery store. You know what I'm saying? They actually serve a role to maintain a system.
Right.
And it's not about individual police being racist or not. It's the institution. You know what I mean?
Trains them that way. It trains them to be racist.
Yeah, that they have no choice but to uphold racist policies and genocidal policies, because that's what the institution reinforces, those social relationships. You know what I'm saying? And this is the level of consciousness that we have to develop within our movement as we move forward. So again, I implore all the comrades on here, start coming to these book readings. You know what I mean? We don't expect you to come to every one. We know everybody has a life, but we get a lot. All the comrades that's on here that attendees, we have rich conversations that actually make us think like, wow, aha. I never thought about it from that angle. Or we relate to other oppressed, colonized community, like some of our indigenous comrades that's on here. When we hear their stories, it's like, damn, okay, I thought this was only Black population that go through this. I can relate to y'all because I see the indigenous population went through that same type of colonial miseducation in these schools and stuff. And that self-hate that we internalize and stuff. All these things are important. I see Joe Gonzalez hand up. Go ahead, comrade.
Yeah, thank you, Comrade Kwame, for bringing up the indigenous side of the story too. And when we're talking about as revolutionaries and as revolutionary soldiers and soldierettes, we have to can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you, comrade.
Oh, because I had my earphones plugged in, so I didn't know if you guys heard me. But anyway, we have to stay strong in the struggle. And what happens in all our communities affect all of us as individuals, no matter what skin color you have or what your ancestors are, because people that face struggles under this colonial system usually are people of color. And but with much respect to the White Panther Party and High Thurman and them and stuff, but we have to stay strong. That there's no if, ands, or buts about it, and we have so much to draw on in our own communities. And what is really nice is with the Rainbow Coalition that we equally understand and have an equal platform with other diversity groups and ethnic communities that are facing the same struggles. And that makes it a beautiful thing. That makes it something that we can all relate to, because it affects us all within our own communities. But anyway, I was so grateful to hear the elders speak tonight.
Yeah.
Oh man, I was like happier than a chipmunk up a damn tree.
Yeah, I didn't even know Panama was gonna be on here.
Oh man.
Yeah, that was.
I know. High Thermal
Yeah.
too. High Thermal was here too.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
was he?
Yeah,
Oh,
he
hell
was.
yeah.
He didn't say anything, unfortunately. I would have loved to hear his wisdom on some of the topics, but he came on too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Who was
but
that?
High
High
Thurman.
Thurman.
Oh yeah, I saw Hi. He didn't speak anything.
Oh, but
Yeah.
I was just so happy, and like, you know what? Because this is one of the things that I related on a conversation I had earlier today. Is like to be able to hear the elders speak really brings joy to my heart, because we don't know how long we have, because tomorrow's not promised to any one of us as individuals. And the older you get, well, you know, your percentage goes down a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to be nice. But anyway, it was just so beneficial and so appreciative. And well, all part of the people, comrades, and like revolutionary love all across the nation. And let us all stay strong as revolutionary fighters and soldiers, as they did in the old days that we were read on the takeover of the hospital, Lincoln Hospital, as a lot of other things that were in this study group, in this book reading on this book, attributes that the young lords had were well examples to create new ideas and what we can take into today. You know, I'm not just, and then basic fundamental things, like they was trying to get refuse out the streets.
Right.
They was trying to take over a hospital for just medical rights or the medical rights of people need to be treated.
And we still to this day is benefited from the patient bill of rights, even though they watered it down.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Even though they watered it down.
Right.
You know? But yeah.
And thank you, Kwame, for sharing that video, because I got to watch it earlier. I was like, yo.
You see how old Cleo was with it? She went in there and said, look, we taking over this hospital. And we ready
snap.
the administration to evacuate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, can we please give Cleo her
one
clap?
love.
No, you just
clap,
walk out.
Comrade Cleo, I just remembered a question I wanted to ask, but I forgot it. And this is a very interesting question, and I think it relates to combating misogyny. What were the things that led to Felipe Luciano being demoted? Because I'm really interested about what led to his demotion.
It's nothing that's not happening now, or that has not been happening. The brothers always think that they could sleep with more than one sister at a time in an organization, and especially if you are the leader or in the leadership of the organization. You cannot do it, brothers, because eventually the sisters are going to find out, and they're going to confront you, because this is the way revolutionaries do it. They're going to, and when you do that, you foster disunion inside of the organization and a lack of trust. Okay, that's the real reason why you don't do it, is because you foster a lack of trust and division inside of the organization. You don't want to do that. You can't have a strong organization if you have division and if you have a lack of trust among the sisters or the sisters for the brothers. You cannot do it. And that's what Felipe did. Felipe was sleeping with 3 or 4 of the sisters in the organization. And the sisters got together and said, wait a minute now, you know that Edith Morales was married to Felipe. She was the leader of the women's takeover of the organization and the struggle inside the organization for women's equality, just so that you are aware of what brought that about. So that was the reason why Felipe was demoted. And eventually he came back to the organization and came back to a level of leadership. But he was demoted because he, you know, you can, and the other thing is that when you're in an organization, you can't hide.
You can.
Yeah. When you're in a tight organization where everybody know everybody else, we're talking to each other all the time.
It's like a small town.
And I'm coming over tonight and we're going to drink wine after the study group together. It's going on. And then, so we know what's going on. Everybody know everything that's going on in the organization.
Yeah.
So there's no way to hide.
You can't hide from yourself.
That's right. And the other thing is, sisters are not prone, they're usually prone to having one relationship at a time. You're not usually prone to having 2 or 3 brothers at the same time that you're sleeping with in the organization. And if we do, it's wrong. Because it sets the tone for division and it sets the tone for a lack of trust. Or if you're going to do it like that, then everybody know. That's the way we live in. We live in like that. But I don't think it's a good idea to live like that. I think it's a better idea to have trust.
Right. It's reckless to not have trust.
Thank you.
Reckless.
Yes.
So exactly. Without trust and without discipline, what do you have? Nothing.
You have nothing. In certain things you just cannot do.
So that's why Felipe, brother, had to step down from leadership.
See, that's having these discussions because we get the inside story. And like Cha-Cha, like I was talking to him at his 75th birthday.
Yeah.
And certain stuff. I was like, some of the stuff he telling me, you ain't gonna get in no book. Like he talked about, he was like, yeah, we used to admire the vice lords and stuff in Chicago. So that's why we came up with the name Young Lords and stuff, because we admired them, but we also admired the Black Panther Party. So we took the name Young Lords out of respect for them, but we took the model of the Black Panther Party. I was like, that's what's up.
They did. They truly did. They truly did. And Chancha also said that the other orgs like the Black Stone Nation and other groups were supposed to be part of the Rainbow Coalition as well, but it didn't happen because Fred was assassinated before all that even happened. So like, is that other facet of history that we're not taught about, yet they want to focus so hard on, you know, the Young Lords being a gang and all, but they don't understand the class understanding of why they started off as a gang. They were facing urban genocide from the city government by Richard Daley Sr., who's Irish, by the way. He hated himself. He hated his own people too. When the Irish Appalachian migrants started coming up to what is now Uptown, or what they called back then Hillbilly Heaven, they were being treated the exact same way by Daley, who's Irish. They were being treated the exact same way by the police.
Don't forget, comrade, he's Irish bourgeoisie.
The Irish,
right?
That makes the difference.
Yeah.
His class position put him in a different position than the working class Irish people.
Yeah,
and
white
that's
supremacist.
so important, comrade.
The Irish bourgeoisie. Got it.
Yes.
Got it.
Ireland.
Like
comrades fight liberation over there as well.
Yeah, it's very, very important that we keep that in mind, especially with Daley being part of the Irish bourgeoisie.
Thank you. Yes.
You know, like to have such hatred not only against African people and against Boricuas and against Chicanos, but also against your own people.
Right.
That is the thing that we have to talk about, is that Daley's parents came from the Great Potato Famine made possible by the English bourgeoisie in Ireland. And like to be ignorant against that history, against your roots, where you came from, where your parents came from. You know, that's another aspect that we have to discuss as well, is that, you know, certain things, certain nuances that we have to confront about our history, about ourselves. You know, once again with Felipe Luciano, you know, certain things, you know, you just don't do. But you know, back then that was what they thought. That was what they thought. And what, you know, today, even today, what some of us still think. And it's very important that we confront that, because once again, you know, it's certain things that you don't do for trust, for that solidarity to stay strong. You know, once again, you know, you cannot just be, you know, going around being, you know, reckless. You know, if a collective is a collective, then that is what it is. You learn together, you criticize each other, and you criticize yourself, and you can't hide from yourself. You have to
struggle together.
And comrades, you know, you don't have to stick out your little bird chest and be all macho and stuff. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for your willingness to fight, your willingness to get out there and struggle, and then your willingness to be able to talk to a lady with a baby and kiss the baby. Exactly. So you have that ability to do all of those things, and to fight, and stand up for yourself, and stand up for your people.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, and like in the case of some of my comrades on here, this transgender, you know what I'm saying? Like, we recognize your who you are in our movement. Like, that's one thing I love about the Young Lords too. You know, Shanti, Gabby, transgender comrades, but they feel at home with us because they realize, like, at the end of the day, it was due to the Black Panther Party, due to the Young Lords, that made us in the Communist Revolutionary Socialist movement start to reanalyze these questions. You know what I mean? This ain't a degeneration of bourgeois society, decadence as they called it. You know, and we learned as a movement. We learned as a communist movement that certain ideals that we had to get rid of. You know what I'm saying? That don't reflect the class struggle. You know what I mean? When I read Huey P. Newton, I still be educating people about this, about Huey's was that 1970 essay when he was talking about women and gay liberation movement. And
I read that.
Yeah, he said even he was like, maybe with the pretty, even though he said gay liberation, that's what it was called at that time. But you know, in the LGBTQI plus movement, he was like, pretty much maybe they are more oppressed than us. And I'm only speaking because I'm socialized into a patriarchal society, but I can empathize and understand like what our LGBTQI plus comrades go through. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So this is one thing I love about our movement. Like, we've taken the lessons of Cleo. We took in lessons of, you know, some of the comrades like Che dealing with the prison liberation movement. We took the lessons of like Cha-Cha and all them, and we're applying them today. And that's the why we do what we're doing. You know what I mean? I don't know how long y'all want to stay on here. I can stay on here all night. But I definitely
I'm gonna have to bounce pretty soon.
Right.
Cool.
All power to people, Cleo. You're amazing. You're seriously wonderful.
Cleo, I'm giving you your flowers while you're still here. I'm giving you your flowers.
Thank you, comrade. Thank you for that.
Always.
Women do not get enough. I'm giving you your credit. I'm giving you your credit because you deserve it. You deserve it.
You're one of the most revolutionary people I know. You're amazing.
You deserve it.
And still boots on the ground.
Still boots on the ground. Still boots on the ground.
On the ground, and we have to give you your flowers while you're still here. You are a badass, and we love you, and we are grateful. We are grateful for your contribution, Young Lords, to the movement, to the, you know, to all things revolutionary back then and today. We give you your grace right now.
Thank you, comrades. I appreciate it. I love being here with you. You should know that. I really love being here with you and helping to share the experience that we had so that you don't have to make those same mistakes.
Absolutely.
That you to broaden up, and keep stepping.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate I want to say thanks to all the comrades that came on to jump on this beautiful panel discussion. I want to thank all the ones that participated in this book reading. Tomorrow we're gonna be in the comrade. The comrade is actually on here today. I want to say Torres. We will be. Where you at, Johnny Torres? Johnny
He
Torres.
left. He just left. Sister Sen, you're muted.
That's what I was gonna say too. He just took off a moment ago.
Oh yeah.
Okay. We anybody wants to jump on tomorrow? Zen, your days at 8 p.m. Eastern time?
Yes. Mondays are 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah.
I thought it was 7.
No, that's right. That's
Maybe
Friday.
Oh, that's Friday. That's right. Yeah.
Fridays are 7 p.m.
Okay. So 8 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. We'll be reading Johnny Torres's book, Voices of the Revolution. I want to say that's what it's called. I got a copy of that book. I bought a copy of that book. Definitely support our comrade Johnny Torres. We want to always support our comrades that's actually putting forth literature for our generation. He's talking about he's including a lot of the histories of the Brown Beret comrades of this generation and past. You know what I'm saying? So jump on there tomorrow. Zen will be hosting that. Then we have my days where I'm gonna be only on every other weekend now because I just started another job. So I'll be working late night shift, and that's gonna interfere. So I'll be on every other weekend, but that's Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And then we have Sundays. Comrade Gabby, I heard from her today. She does a wonderful job on days at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So jump on and check us out. This is how we really.
And don't forget.
Huh?
Oh, I was gonna say, and don't forget, and don't forget on Tuesdays with the United Panther Movement Book Club, we are currently reading "Seize the Time" by Bobby Seale. So definitely stop by that.
It's a lot of tea, so don't miss out on that. Don't miss out,
y'all.
It's a lot of scandal, it's a lot of tea, and a lot of insight into our revolutionary elders and ancestors. So definitely hop on to the Seize the Time book club. We're still kind of in the beginning of the book. We're getting to the part where Eldridge Cleaver joins the party, and it's going to be a lot of insight on that. So if you have the time, definitely jump on the Seize the Time book club. It gets very, very just as insightful too. So
all right, I appreciate that ad for the plug for the UPM. I know it's the other reading groups with the Brown Berets, all that stuff, but definitely participate, comrades. A pleasure having y'all all on tonight. Pleasure having you on coming on always, comrade Cleo. You know what I mean? We always look at you as an asset to our revolutionary movement because you, like I said, you help us understand like what not to do for our generation and what we should adapt from y'all generation and do do even better. So hoes in, pleasure having you on as always, comrade, and everyone have a good night.
All power to the people.
All power
and liberation for Palestine.
Cleo, we love you, comrade Cleo.
All love and power.
All power. Stay strong, comrades.
Love you guys. Also, Kwame. If you want, if you want, we could get into a call and we could discuss the different books that we can have for next time.
Okay, I'm gonna hit you up this weekend because I gotta go to work tomorrow. So I'll be going a little bit, but I definitely at you, comrade. All power to the people.
Y'all. All power.
And maybe we can set up a meeting for the panel soon here. Also, if you want a hand hosting for the weeks that you have to work on Fridays, I can
Okay.
throw down on that with Comrade Alyssa.
Okay, yeah, I'll send y'all my schedule. I'll send it to the Friday group chat so you and Alyssa and everybody can look at it. But it'd be every other
Okay.
weekend. You know what I mean?
Right on. Sounds good.
Right on.
Right now,
Cool.
prior to the
All power.
For some reason, Zoom's not giving me the option to end the recording. So,
because
Gabby, you might have to do
It's
that
Kwame.
since you started it, or Kwame might.
Kwame's the host.
all right, take